Invocation by Pastor Mike Bell. And if you'd remain standing, Supervisor Borelli will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Good morning. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you are a good God, and we thank you for your love for us, of how you care for us in our lives, of how you care for the smallest detail in everything that we do. And we thank you for this county board and the work that they perform. We humbly ask that you guide them in all the details, the operation of this county, that you bestow your wisdom upon them, guide them in all that they do, and protect every county worker, fireman, sheriff, even down to the garbage collector and the dog catcher. Under your protection and guidance, O Lord, may this county prosper and thrive for all generations. Let Mojave County be a place of refuge and delight for many people. We ask these things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please face the flag of a country that has brought more prosperity to the world than mankind has ever known. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Raw, carry on.
Board of Supervisors may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, A3, 4, and 7. Looking for a motion and action to call for an executive session to be held on June 16th, 2025 at 9 a.m.
So moved.
With that motion second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All. Let's be to have it. Thank you. Official business to come before the board. Discussion of pending or contemplated litigation claims and demands. Attorney Davis.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Committee and or legislative reports. Supervisor Lettman.
None.
Thank you. Supervisor Gould.
Nothing today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Borelli.
Done.
Supervisor Martin.
This past month, I attended the Kingman Elks Club. They put on their annual Fishing for Smiles program. They had two programs, one for the regular kids and then one for our special needs people in mid-May. Both events went off without a hitch. It was a great event, and the Elks Club should be proud of what they've done for the Kingman and Mojave County community. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'll report that Supervisor Borelli and I, we went back, we took a trip to D.C. to meet with the second in command at the Department of Interior, Karen Bud Phelan, regarding the national energy emergency that President Trump issued. Also, the Baj Monument that was created in 2023 under the Obama, same difference, Biden administration. Half of that was in District 1 of Mojave County, really no public process. So we went back and they're very receptive at looking at from the lens of national energy security. Also our military, I don't know how many of you know this, but a lot of our military assets require nuclear power. And some people think that they're going to run out of that within the next decade or two. So we certainly don't want our military in this country to be reliant upon a foreign power. That's just one example of many. So it's going to be a really careful process when they're looking at these national monuments and perhaps adjusting the boundaries of those. President Trump did that his first term, and I think he's got an even stronger team this time. So I want to thank Supervisor Borelli for going back and being a great partner and advocate on that. Also, we had an opportunity to meet with our own Congressman Gosar, and as always, he's a great friend and champion to Mojave County and on this stuff. So, Supervisor Borelli, did you have something else?
Mr. Chairman, and more to the point, a lot of people don't understand this, but for our military support, we cannot use any uranium or anything like that that comes from an adversarial country. For example, Russia sold all their uranium to China, and China is selling it to you, to companies in the United States. We cannot use that for defense. It has to come from domestic sources, and we don't want to be at the mercy of our enemies. But that's how critical this is.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So that's what I have to report. Do we have a lobbyist report this morning? Or, yes, we do.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ponder, are you with us?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Supervisors, thank you for the opportunity again, and good morning. The legislature is on a break. They are set to come back this Wednesday and do at least one day of work. The main hang-up right now, obviously, is the budget. They came back, the House, one day last week and did one day of work. But again, they're trying to work through a budget. Right now, there's a dispute between the House majority and the Senate majority on how they want to work through that budget and what starting dollar amount that they are working with for what they presume to be the budget surplus. So we only have about 28 more days to figure that out, but they're going to continue to try to do that. Importantly, on our water issue, the governor was up in La Paz County last week, focusing on rural groundwater challenges. There was a lot of reports in the media down here in Phoenix that she was talking about how the rural groundwater legislation really hadn't moved, and that if there wasn't anything substantive that came across her desk, then the Department of Water Resources would be taking further action on other basins throughout the state. I would suspect that that largely means the Gila Bend Basin, which is just southwest here of the Phoenix area. And I think that is of great concern to Senator Dunn. I did talk with Senator Dunn last week. He is anxious to get up to the Kingman area to tour the Hualapai Valley Basin. He has a harvest this week. He's a wheat farmer. So he has a harvest this week of wheat. And then obviously the Senate is supposed to come back on Wednesday. So he's trying to harvest his wheat or plant his wheat, I believe is what he's doing. And then obviously get to the Senate. But as he figures out the Senate schedule, he wants to figure out an opportunity to come up and see the challenges that we're going through in the Hualapai Basin, see the data that we have to present to him with the 34,000 acre foot deficit annually that we can present to him based on the most recent data that the county and the city put forward. So that's what we're working on right now. I continue to be in communication, again, like I said, with Senator Dunn to try and get those conversations going. I think one of the things I would say that is most disappointing, though, is that there have been weekly meetings initiated by Representative Griffin, the Central Arizona Home Builders, and some Central Arizona land owners. There have been weekly meetings every single Wednesday on converting urban land to residential, urban farmland to residential. And those have been happening weekly. And this just goes to show that every time urban Arizona needs legislation done on water, it typically happens in one legislative session. But when rural Arizona needs something done, it takes a generation to get it done, and that's unfortunate. And I think the most unfortunate part is that Representative Griffin is at the head of the table championing legislation for Maricopa County and not legislation for her own district in LD19, because I know that the city of Wilcox is clamoring for the legislation that we are pushing as well. And so I think that is the most frustrating thing. And so I think that that's important for us all to know, is that urban Arizona continues to see their needs satisfied, and we're left continuing to push to try and get those conversations going. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your update, Mr. Ponder. And we want to thank Senator Dunn for all of his efforts in trying to champion this effort. I know that the city of Kingman, their they're really looking forward to him coming up and hosting him here in the Wallapai Valley and showing him, what the effect is going to be on their municipal water system, things like this. Any questions?
100%.
Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
County Manager's report.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. No report today.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have one proclamation declaring June 2025 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month in Mojave County. If there's any desire for me to read it into the record, I would. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
With that motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. We've had a request this morning before we get into our consent agenda from our county manager and finance director that item number 48, discussion and possible action, approve the adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 tentative budget with modifications and set June 16th, 2025 as the date for the public hearing on the final budget and tax levy and truth in taxation, if applicable, and set a special board meeting for adoption of the final budget on June 16th, 2025, following the public hearing. We're going to move that item forward. Manager Elters, I'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, and good morning again. It's this time of year when we present to you a tentative budget. What you're going to see today will be consistent with what you saw in the middle of April during the budget workshop. I think you're going to hear about a couple of items, primarily just reconciliation where factual data came in that changed the numbers, and primarily on the revenue side. You will hear an update on that, and then we'll discuss with you the content of the budget and the recommendation that comes with that, hoping that the board will adopt a tentative budget today in preparation for a final budget at the next board meeting, with the goal of having a final budget in hand before the beginning of the next fiscal year, FY26, which starts on July 1st next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Elters. Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, good morning. Happy to be here today. There's a number of different items that we need to get through today. I'm just going to walk through those real quickly. So first, I will review a list of any modifications that have occurred since the budget workshop took place in mid-April. Primarily, those include any sort of budget adjustments. As County Manager Elters said, that could be due to additional revenue or updated revenue estimates, changes on the expense side, items that were approved by the board since April, things of that nature. I will answer any questions if anyone has them about budget initiatives or capital requests that we previously discussed at the workshop, but happy to go into those as well again if needed. And then we do have, with our proposed budget, with the tax rates that are being proposed, we will need to hold TNT hearings if the tentative budget that we're recommending is adopted today. We'll need to hold TNT hearings at the next meeting for the county's primary property tax rate, as well as the flood control district's levy rate. And so that will be part of the motion that needs to be passed today. And with that, I'll start by going through just some of the adjustments and changes that have happened since the budget workshop. But I will remind the board that all of the options that we're going to discuss today, any of the 5-year forecasts that I present to you, those are all based on including the $1.25 million sweep from the library district that we discussed previously, as well as that tax rate swap that basically lowers the levy rates for the TV district and the library district and gives a increase to the county's countywide primary property tax rate. And so just bear in mind that all three of the different options I'm going to present today are based on the revenues that are generated from both of those ideas. Before I get into the recommended budget option, just real quickly, a couple budget modifications that have occurred. There is a long list of every modification, including very small dollar ones, in the backup to the agenda item. But the primary ones on the revenue side of things, we received word that we would be receiving an additional $200,000 in PILT revenue next year. So that is good news for the county. And then when we presented the preliminary budget, our cost allocations and our special district fees still had not been finalized. Those have been finalized, and that generates about an additional $55,000 in revenue. Based on the ongoing discussions happening at the federal level and at the state level regarding grant funding, we have included an additional $70,000 transfer from the general fund to public health, and this is primarily to cover decreases in grant funding that the public health department is expecting to receive. And that $70,000 transfer is primarily to keep the mobile health unit in operation for the rest of fiscal 26, as well as a much smaller amount that's going into the nursing division. Other things that have affected the budget since April, we have purchase over rollovers. There's about 108,000 of those. The big ticket ones in there in the general administrative budget is purchase order rollover $72,000 for legal services. On the facilities side, about 10,000 in equipment purchase orders, and on the sheriff's side, about 26,000 in equipment rollovers. And then last Friday, I actually received word from our sheriff. He had 2 capital requests in the FY26 budget to improve the communications in the River District North and River District South. Happily, he informed me that he was able to work a deal with Lake Havasu City to where our sheriff's office can piggyback on their digital radio network. And so that those 2 capital requests in total were about $550,000. Those are both being pulled out of the budget. And word from the sheriff's office is that for a cost of about $15,000, they're going to be able to buy some equipment that will allow them to piggyback on Havasu's digital radio network. So big savings there. So thank you to our sheriff for his efforts there. And with that, unless there are any questions about any of the other budget modifications, I will move into the recommendations.
Any questions before we move on? Professor Lettman.
So, Mr. Morty, and I have questions generally about the budget. Do you want me to wait until you do the presentation of the...
We can get those questions out of the way now.
And I apologize to my fellow board members. Some of this should have been covered at the budget workshop. I'm a newbie. So I've whittled down my 80 questions to about 15. Okay, so let's just go through them real fast that I had. So Luke, could you talk about the general philosophy around the contingency fund setup? So contingency has gone from fiscal year 2025 adopted of $11 million, and in the budget we've raised it to $12.5 million. Why would we do that?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Lettman, the contingency calculation, we have calculated that as 10% of operating expenses. And so in all of the different options I'll present today across the 5-year forecast, the contingency line item is 10% of our budgeted operating expenses.
And do we typically find ourselves in a typical year dipping into the contingency fund?
Supervisor, good question. Typically, yes, we do, although not to any large extent. There's a number of reasons why we may need to delve into there. I believe this year we've pulled a couple $100,000 out of contingency when departments had needs that arise that had not been budgeted for.
Okay, so an example of that would be inside the IT area, we have the contingency going from this year's adopted number of 1.2 million up to almost 2.1 million for the IT department. What would result in a $900,000 increase in that contingency?
Supervisor Letman, so with the IT department, that would primarily be their fund balance increasing year over year. And so as that fund balance increases, it gets rolled into that contingency line item. They use that contingency line item for their capital needs projected out over 5 years. And so when you see that fund balance or the contingency increasing, I would need to lead on our IT director if he wants to speak to his 5-year plans for capital improvements, but that's generally the premise.
Yeah, well,
Director McDaniel, you want to come up?
Sure. Morning, Chairman and Board. The contingency number you're speaking about, Supervisor Letman, I checked with Sonia and Judy in Finance right before this meeting. That number is not increasing to 2 million. That number is actually increasing to about 1.5 million. The reason why is there are some balance sheet adjustments that need to be made that will basically make that not look so eye-popping.
okay, so are we using contingency for capital request item in this area? Is that what I heard you say, Luke?
Me to answer this?
And if so, why wouldn't we just put that in a capital improvement fund?
Supervisor Letman, from my perception, and obviously I'm not an accountant, so the accountants here can correct me if I'm wrong, the prior year contingency line in IT's budget is budgeted so that we could potentially use it if we had to. Because I think by law, if you don't budget the expense or the amount of money, you cannot use it at all. So the prior year contingency is essentially the fund balance of IT, and that does include all of the money sitting there ready to be used for 5-year capital plans.
Okay, and separate in your area, you had about a 35-40% jump in your supply budget for your particular department. Any idea what's that all about?
So information technology is a internal service department. We provide services to all the departments in the entire county, sheriff's office, treasurer, assessor, any general fund department, and even grant funds. This is all excluding the courts. We do not provide services to the courts, but the technology supply line in IT's budget pays for various break-fix type things that happen throughout the year. That particular increase that you're referencing is specific to a monitor replacement project we were doing. In the prior year before, we had a capital request for, I think it was $40,000 extra. Was it 50? I think it was maybe $50,000 extra to do widespread monitor replacements throughout the entire county. When the county started doing the budgetary exercises to downsize the operational expenses in lieu of a pending deficit, we eliminated the capital project, but we increased the supply line in order to be able to do some break-fix monitors across the board throughout the entire county.
Good answer. It's a good answer. Thanks. That's all I had for Nate. I've got others.
Yep. Any more for Director Mournian? Okay. Supervisor Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Mournian, on the mobile health unit. The mobile health unit was paid for with COVID money. My goal was to not create ongoing expenses with that COVID money, the ARPA money. Apparently now we've created an ongoing expense with the mobile health unit. I've heard that the mobile health unit is not particularly utilized when it's out in the public, that it doesn't work well. The way that it was made does not allow it to function well. And I'm curious why we would want to move general fund money into something like that.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, I would need to rely on the Public Health Department to talk about the details of the operations of the mobile health unit. But my understanding was when that ARPA project was approved to purchase and fund the operations of the mobile health unit, that as part of that approval, there would be a discussion of, once the ARPA funding ran out, whether or not the board as a whole wished to continue funding it, with the understanding that that would be at least in part coming out of general funds. They are offsetting some of the operating expenses on the personnel side from various grant funding, but they will run out of the ARPA funding. The estimate is sometime in September, and so that's why the request for the additional funds. Do you have specific questions about the operations of the mobile health unit itself?
Whether they can be addressed by the director or not, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman.
Manager Elters?
Supervisor Gould, good morning. Unfortunately, the public health director is on scheduled leave and is not here today. We have the deputy here. But let me just make a couple of comments, if I may. One, we started the public health unit with a larger budget from District 4, with the understanding all along that at some point past the December 31st of 2026, those funds would not be available for use, and the county would make a decision at that time as to whether we fund it with a general fund or not. Subsequently, we reduced that budget because based on operational costs, we determined we did not need all those funds, and those funds went toward other ARPA-funded projects that needed the fund. Most recently, we revisited that in preparation for this year's budget and reduced it even further when we brought the plan to the board to allocate 100% of the ARPA funds. We said, given grant funds that can go to fund the public health unit, we took any extra funds that were perceived to be extra and put them toward other ARPA projects to fund them completely, unbeknownst to us or unaware that those grant funds would be reduced and we would have the deficit that we're trying to cover today. As far as the operation and the value of the public health unit, the public health department is reporting to you, the board, monthly on its use, the number of visits, the number of individuals that are benefiting from it, the type of services that is providing, and it seems to be well received, and community members, it's not just limited to one district, it's going countywide, and it seems to be providing the services that were perceived and promised at a level that county residents are returning for and appreciating. So I just wanted to share that with you. I hope I've added some value.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould?
Which begs a bigger question. Since most of these people are on access to state Medicaid program, the state Medicaid program provides transportation for these people. So it seems to be somewhat of a redundant service that we have to send our mobile unit that we created with ARPA money out into the community when these people already receive healthcare benefits from other ways. I'm not sure who this is really serving. Most people that are above the age of 65 are on Medicare, so they go see their doctor. So I'm unsure who this is really even serving.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Gould, all I can tell you is just looking at the report and the numbers, and that when the public health unit is scheduled and goes out into a community, it is drawing visits, and it's quite a few different preventative type medical services related. Just the numbers are in the report. I don't have the information. I wish the public health director was here to drill down further with you, but we can certainly follow up.
Sounds like we need a little bit more board discussion on that particular item, but I think that you still have some presentation to give, right?
That's correct, Chairman.
Let's continue with that.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. Supervisor Letton, I didn't know you were...
Yeah, Director Mourning, moving while we're in public health, this is a great segue. So when you look at the total revenues for public health, we're at a revenue of $7.3 million, and it's down $941,000. And I understand public health is significantly funded by federal, state, regional grants. Then you take a look at expenditure side, and it's only down $291,000, which is a difference of about $650,000. Okay, so I just pulled out a couple of examples, and I don't expect you to know these off the top of your head, but like in the WIC health grant, and I understand it's a grant, I get that. So we're moving in WIC Health from 25 from a plan of 735,000 up to 820,000 in WIC. But when you go look at the corresponding expense side of WIC, make sure I got the count numbers right. This is 229 is the account number. We moved from 574,000 up to 921,000. So the expense is going up by 400. The revenues are going up by 90. Second example of that would be on the, let me see if I got that for you. We'll skip smoke-free Arizona. 228, just the public health fund in general. It moves from 1.173 million up to a plan of 1.207, but the expenses go from 1.3 million up to 1.8. So a $500,000 increase. Tell me this isn't coming out of the general fund to make up these differences.
Supervisor Letman. So 228 is the, I believe that's the, both of these, 228 and 229. So that's WIC and the Public Health's Environmental Health Division. And so those, where you see the expenses appearing to increase at a more rapid pace than the revenues, that is largely in part to funds that were budgeted in FY25, not expended, and so those roll over into the next fiscal year.
Is there a way we could make that easier to understand for next year's budget?
Supervisor Letman, I can certainly take a look at providing additional detail next year.
Yeah, I mean that's a great answer. So it's not coming out of general fund; it's just a rollover of leftover money.
That is correct, Supervisor Letman. The transfer that I mentioned previously of about $70,000 from the general fund for mobile health unit was the only change since the preliminary budget in that regard.
So, somebody had a question? No. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the improvement districts and the improvement funds. So more of this is in terms of the flood control district, okay, which might be Mr. Director Holtry's area, I'm assuming. So as we look at some of the requests that are out there for Grace Neal, Hualapai Aquifer, Bank Street improvement, the general question I have is any of the money for these developments, these are big developments covering wide areas of land, are the developers paying for any of this? Or is this strictly coming out of federal, state, taxpayer funds? Where is this money coming from?
Supervisor Letman, you are correct that those projects are funded from a variety of sources. It does include a significant amount of grant funding, both at the federal and state levels. It also is locally levied and collected flood control district tax revenues, but I will defer to Director Holtry and let him answer the specifics.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Letman, the developers, when a developer comes in, they are required to meet the drainage design manual as far as their development is concerned. And also for a subdivision, if a subdivision is coming in for a residential home subdivision, they would need to do improvements to that subdivision. So if that included the streets that are leading to that property, they would have to do the improvements for that. The projects that are listed are all existing infrastructure or development that's around it. It's not new development that's coming in. The new development that does come in does need to meet our drainage design standards and provide the drainage on site, and then also improve any roads leading to that development if it's a residential subdivision.
Okay, so I understand that, but obviously when you build a flood control district, you're anticipating development 15 years from now, 20 years from now, I assume? Does that make sense?
Yeah, we plan, when we go through the projects that we're looking at, we look at the future development of the county and what impacts.
Okay, so we have up here on Bank Street, you have a significant request for funding in here. And I guess my question is, at what point, where's that funding coming from? Property taxes in the flood control district?
Mr. Chairman,
Manager Elters.
Supervisor Latman, just as an engineer, I feel like I can jump in and help out answer some of these questions related specifically to Bank Street. Bank Street drainage problems have existed for decades, and it does directly impact the high school in the Kingman area. There was an opportunity for congressionally designated spending funds, which are federal dollars. We applied for, we received $1.25 million. We did so justifying the impact of this drainage problem over the years to the high school and the neighborhoods, received them before we completed the design for that project. We did so and qualified for the funds with the understanding that any deficit between the funds awarded and the need to complete the project would come from the flood control district, which is designed to address this kind of a problem. That's one point. The other point, most of these flood control district projects are more of larger and even regional nature. They're not really specific to development. As you heard from Director Haltry, developments are supposed to and do address the drainage needs specific in particular to that development. These are larger projects designed to ensure that flows, runoff stays within channel banks. They're intercepted through a detention pond, perhaps even a recharge element to those. But in general, they're of larger regional nature, not specific to any one particular development.
Okay, so obviously on Bank Street, these are existing homes that have been there for a long time.
That's correct.
Okay. Over in Golden Valley, the basin and future design projects, we have a request for $450,000.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Littman, I looked into that one. The 450 is for the general area, where it's I think it's Golden Valley, Lake Havasu, Bullhead areas, and a lot of what we do in the flood control district is reactionary, and so we earmarked $450,000 for in the event that a big storm comes and we have to do some remediation or whatever it takes. We have that money earmarked.
Okay. And another item, over in Mojave Valley, you have a request in for the next year for a $2.425 million repair to the reconstruction of the septic ponds at Mojave Valley landfill. And I'm assuming these have been inoperative for a number of years.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Littman, that is correct. They went inoperable in April of 2020.
So what have we been doing in the interim with septic tank discharge?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Littman, so I believe there is a private company in that area that a lot of the haulers have been hauling it to that private company. Otherwise, they would have to haul it to our Cerebat landfill. Just doing a little bit of research on this subject, the EPA does require that the local municipality provide the disposal of septic within the county, following the state statute, which state statute also requires that we provide that service. Whether or not the Cerebat landfill counts as that service would be a question. One thing that does state in the state statute is that it needs to be convenient to the property owners or to the companies within the county. We just did some research on that. Since the septic ponds have been inoperable in the Mojave landfill, it's about a 270 to 300% increase to those local companies that would have to drive it to Cerebat.
Okay, so I'm assuming the Fort Mojave Indian Tribe enjoys having this brought over to their facility. They're obviously collecting a fee on it. I guess the question I would have is, what's wrong with just continuing to do that and save ourselves $2.4 million?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Lemon, I would just look at the EPA standards and the state statute that requires us to provide this type of service. We've already spent $90,000 in generating the design, and it's almost ready to go out for bid to create it. The other thing is we're also looking at using it as a revenue source for right now down in the Mojave Valley area. There isn't too many places for RV dump stations, and so this would also open it up for that as well.
Well, could we delay that until we can pursue that as an agenda item for the entire board? I would still like to look at what's wrong with the status quo, which apparently we've been doing for up to 4 years. Okay, and save ourselves the money, unless this money is coming from an outside source, our friends back in DC, and I don't know if it is or not.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Lemon, no, it's coming from our landfill operations.
Okay. And question, why wouldn't we just build this into the requirements for Republic Services? They operate the landfill.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Littman, that's a good question. That's something that we can look into, whether or not that would be an expense that would be overwhelming for the operator, and they wouldn't be able to accept the position to be able to operate the landfill would be a question, I think.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They could probably get it built cheaper than we could get it built, is what I would believe. So if we could work that into the operating contract. I don't know if that was part of the request for proposals that just went out last week.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Gould, I don't believe that was part of it, no. For constructing the septage ponds, that was not part of it. You have Tara to correct me.
Correct.
Good morning. Supervisor Gould, just to provide a little bit of clarification, we statutorily have to perform construction on publicly owned property in certain ways, and so we intentionally excluded big construction items from the routine maintenance of the landfill. So it is not in the RFP, and our approach has been that we would decide when we need to make improvements to that landfill. We would work with them, but to make sure that it was compliant with Title 34, we want to run the procurement process and make sure that we're going through the right selection process.
Thank you.
Great segue over to Tara while she's up there. So Director Acton, a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Hey, in your budget, I was just noticing the central stores, which I think I know what they do over there. Okay, it's pretty clear, but if you look at the jump from 24 to 25, 25 projected to 26, it goes from 600,000 up to 868, up to 936, and now up to 967,000. I assume these are internal charges to the other departments?
Sorry, Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Lettman. I tried to pull it up. I'm not going to be able to log into my laptop in time to respond to you, but there's a lot of factors that go into that. So just a quick summary. Central services is the countywide cell phones, countywide switchboard management, and then the surplus auction process, and then the delivery and postage of mail. So all of those are internal costs where we bill out the direct expense to the departments. We are an internal service budget from that standpoint. And one of the bigger increases was in postage. I think it was about $100,000. I looked that up after you stopped me before the meeting. Part of that is postage costs have gone up. We've had 2 increases within this fiscal year and another one anticipated in next fiscal year. So the overall cost of just general postage has gone up to the USPS. Those are direct expenses that we charge back to the departments. Also, the volume of work that we're processing has increased year over year. And then some of the other areas, we budgeted an increase for our internal services, the couriers that go between Havasu, Kingman, and Bullhead. And then our personnel expenses have gone up slightly. I was short-staffed, about 50% staff for the last year and a half. And so some of those expenses have gone up just specifically. We're finally fully staffed and have well-qualified employees working in that area.
Good answer.
Supervisor Borelli, you had a question for Director Holtry, I believe.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Holtry, got a question. Can you explain to me how, what the fund balance is for Horizon 6? It's a water district, but it's also a improvement district. Can you tell me how that whole thing works here?
Mr. Chair, I believe that would be Public Works. Or
I'd like to know what the balance is in those accounts and what is the revenue stream?
Director Latowski.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Borelli, as of the most recent month, which would be period 10, April, the fund balance in Horizon 6 is $142,254. Our revenues are derived by a maintenance reserve fee that is charged upon the customers monthly, collected by Lake Havasu City and remitted back to Mojave County. I can get that revenue for you. I don't have that in front of me, but it is largely on the level of about $80,000 a year we receive in revenues for the maintenance reserve fee. And that has not been revised, to the best of my memory, for about the past 10 years or so.
That's for water operations?
That's correct, yes. And that supports the nominal level of operations and maintenance expenses that we incur, including the big one is electricity to operate our booster station.
Because I'm looking at the Schedule E here on what you all sent us. Horizon 6 actual expenditures for 2024 was just under $60,000.
Yes.
Adopted budget was $173,000. And of course, expenditures, adjustments approved in 2025. Actual expenditures for 25 is $66,000. And you're budgeting $642,851,000.
Yes. Supervisor Borelli, when Public Works pursued a WIFA grant for the fire booster pump, that was done during an earlier part of fiscal year 25, last October, and that was built into our budget because at the time we did not have resolution on the outcome. It turned out that we did not advance that particular application. That is different from the application that's being pursued right now. So that's why you see that elevated level in the FY 26 requested budget. It really should be removed because it pertained to the original application at the pursuit.
Well, Mr. Chair, I disagree. I think we should take that WIFA grant money, augment what we already have budgeted, and finish that project. Because we should not be putting that on the taxpayers on borrowing that money if we already have the money budgeted. We're talking about public safety, talking about fire suppression equipment, fire hydrants and a booster pump and a backup booster pump. These fire hydrants are in red tag by Havasu Fire Department, but the tax revenues that they're getting out of this Horizon 6, I'm looking at 3/4 of it goes to the schools and everything else, and 25% comes back to the county. So there's a revenue stream there. And when back in 2009, I looked at a checklist on there and it said when they were going through the project, is there adequate pressure for water pressure for fire hydrants and fire suppression? And the checklist said yes, 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 yes. Then when, of course, back in 2019, that kind of modified. Everything was in place. They had fire suppression equipment. And when the county came in, you obviously used the ARPA funds to replace all that water pipes. Now it's not adequate. So basically, we broke it. We need to fix it. And we should not put that on the taxpayers with an additional property tax. So let's keep that in mind when we go through this process. This is a public safety issue. But this is also an improvement district. So are there two different funds?
Supervisor Borelli, no. There's simply just the Horizon 6 Water System Fund. and I should emphasize again that because we did not receive any WIFA funds previously, or actually as of current, the FY26 budget should not receive those excess funds. And a couple of quick clarifications with regard to the project. The project delivered a much needed improvement in the sense that the water lines are now capable of conveying a certain level of flow of the quantity and pressure necessary to deliver fire flow. Where it needs to be improved is at the booster station, though, and that still is the old 1980 design booster station, updated in 2017 with a replacement pump, but we just need to get those fire pumps, those additional pumps in there. Then we can run the waters at a sufficient pressure and flow for fire. That's where we stand.
No, I agree, it needed to be done. The pipes were old and falling apart.
Mr. Chairman,
Manager Elters.
to Supervisor Borelli's point, the WIFA grant was budgeted for should we receive it so we can spend it. That did not happen, but as you know, we are pursuing other means to deliver this project. And that is underway. Now, how much funding we will get and what will be the portion that the district has to pick up is unknown at this moment. But we agree with you. We understand the need to provide the fire suppression and that the pursuit of the funds necessary to deliver this project is still ongoing. Just wanted to make that point clear.
Supervisor Letman, if it would please you, I'd like to ask Director Mournian to finish his presentation. We also have 4 people that have signed up to speak, and then we can get back into the meat and potatoes discussion, if that's okay with you. Let's finish your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Lingenfelter. If we get the slide back up on the board. So as we had discussed previously at the budget workshop in April, the recommendation from myself and Manager Elters will be a structurally balanced budget. And so our recommendation has not changed. It's still that option B that was presented in April. The figures have changed a little bit based on the modifications that I already went over this morning. I will say that in light of the news from the sheriff last Friday, we did not adjust these slides because this image for option B is also included in the digital budget book, and wanting everything to continue to match for this meeting, we did not adjust the slide itself. But you can see on the net recurring revenue and expense line item that for fiscal 26, we are to the positive 23,000. You can add about another 550,000 to that with the removal of his 2 radio upgrade requests. And then when we go down to the bottom line in yellow, where we basically have that surplus fund balance that's available for funding one-time expenses, it would take it from 25.6 to about 26.1. And so that is just really the only change that you need to understand on this. I will just point out that on the recurring revenue expense side for our recommended option B, this is structurally balanced for the entire 5-year period as we forecast out into future years. This option does include funding for 26 of the 32 different budget requests, funding packages that we received from the various general funded departments. It includes 3 different career progression series, some market adjustments and reclassifications, upgrades to the county's 911 system, and then on the FTE side, it includes 8 FTEs, and the bulk of those, 7 of the 8, are related to law and justice, whether that is on the sheriff's patrol side, the jail, the courts. So it does provide some fairly broad support for our law and justice system as well. And as I get into the next 2 options, I just want to point out that while I am not recommending these options because they don't maintain a structurally balanced budget, they are being included based on the feedback we received from 1 or more board members since the budget workshop in April. And It's just not my recommendation to utilize a portion of our fund balance, which is one-time revenue, to fund recurring expenses. And that is why I'm not recommending either of these options, but we'll go through them. And if the board's direction is that we adopt one of them, we will accommodate that utilizing a portion of the fund balance. And so this is a modified option C that was presented at the budget workshop. I will just point out, you can see that in fiscal 26, it does have us at a net deficit of about 2.1 million on the recurring side. You can decrease that to about 1.5 because of the sheriff's capital requests being removed. It would bump it into a net positive in FY27, but again, you do have that single year in FY26 where it is structurally imbalanced. The additions here include some additional FTEs, so it's 3 detention officers, bringing the total increase for FY26 to 5 new detention officer positions. It also includes 2 deputies in addition to the 1 deputy that the board funded when it did away with the communications director. And it also includes a 1 FTE equivalent court commissioners. This would be 2 different court commissioners. But in speaking with the presiding judge, one of those court commissioners would be hired in the fall and another one would be hired later in the spring. And so it's really only full year expense for the equivalent of 1 position, about $430,000 there. And then it also includes compensation adjustments for the sheriff's office on the patrol side. We worked with the sheriff to get those numbers down a bit from what was initially requested by his department. And so the year 1 cost is just under $600,000. The year 2 cost is about $465,000. On the non-recurring side of things, this modified option C provides the $6 million in additional funding to complete phase 2B of the historic courthouse remodel. And those are really the big changes since the budget workshop based on the board's feedback. And so the court commissioner, the other thing I want to add there is we have the equivalent of 1 FTE expense, $430,000 in fiscal 26. In fiscal 27, both of those commissioners will be on the payroll the entire year, and so that expense will jump another $430,000 in fiscal 27. It's not just the court commissioner, it's also judicial assistant and all the operating costs that go along with that. And then finally, we have the last option, option D, again, not recommended because of the fact that it puts us in a structural imbalance. Both in FY26 and in FY27, even when we back out the $550K for the sheriff's radio needs. This does include the funding for the phase 2B of the courthouse remodel. It also includes $3 million earmarked for a new county morgue based on the estimates Public Works provided for refurbishing, renovating an existing existing county building located near our Public Works Department here in Kingman. And along with that $3 million in capital expense, it includes about a half year's expense for bringing those operations in-house based on the estimates that we came up with for personnel and other operating expenses. This would result in an additional $450K in expense in fiscal 27 because the full year estimate is about $900,000 above the current contract cost for the current service provider. The last piece on this is just that it brings our current surplus fund balance from about 26 million down to 13 million. And so just to wrap up, there was a couple things we discussed at the budget workshop, what to do with that significant surplus fund balance. Some of those options have been worked into the recommendations that we just went through. $6 million for the Law and Justice Center Phase 2B. That is an 18-month build time. Also, another project that was proposed was a new office for District 3 Supervisor. That was estimated at $600,000 and another 18-month build time. Option 2 was for the board to designate a sum of that surplus fund balance as undesignated CIP contingency, and so we would basically just move that over into the capital account and utilize it as future needs are identified. And then option 3, and again, none of these options are mutually exclusive, but option 3 would be to implement a policy that would annually designate a % of future general fund surpluses to CIP, and also designate any sale proceeds when the county sells surplus county-owned property, to designate those sale proceeds net of the expenses of the sale to CIP. I did circulate a draft of a general fund balance policy to the board members. We will bring that as a separate item on the June 16th board agenda for the board's consideration and approval. And so my recommendation is that the board adopt option B as discussed, and again, that includes the revenue measures, the tax rate swap, decreasing the TV district and library district tax levy rates, increasing proportionally the countywide primary property tax rate. It also includes that $1.25 million sweep from the library fund. It includes funding PTO buyback program for another year, and we've budgeted for a marginal increase in participation countywide for that. And then also, as I said, next meeting, I'll put that fund balance policy in front of the board for separate consideration and approval. And that does conclude my presentation, Chairman.
Great. I'm going to go forward and get through these 4 speakers, and then we're going to call you back up and get into discussion points and just Matt Smith, followed by Lisa Samstug.
Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the Board of Supervisors, Madam Clerk, Mr. Deputy County Attorney Davis, and of course, Mr. County Manager Sam Elders. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I know you have some tough decisions to make and a lot of questions as well. I'm here to speak today on 2 items that we are asking for in the budget. One of them is to fund a previously frozen and now unfunded attorney position. This is something that we asked for in the tentative budget, but with, I think, good reason, with the attempt to have a balanced budget, as Director Mournian just mentioned. This was something that we did not receive, and we were fine with it. But when the board started speaking at the last meeting about increasing the budget for the sheriff's office and for the courts, specifically not only a Division 8, but also 2 commissioner slots for the courts, we are again asking you to consider funding our unfunded position. So again, this was an attorney position we had years ago that's been frozen. At this time, we are actually fully staffed on the attorney side. Now, we are filling some of those positions with interns. And again, I would thank the board and I would thank our county manager, our county finance director for approving the approximately $55,000 that is being used for our attorney intern program. And that is in the budget. In fact, one of our supervisors recommended somebody, and that young lady who is going to law school in the fall, her name's Ireland Brady, started with our office today by coincidence. So we are continuing to have attorney interns. One of them was Judge Moss's son, who's going to be working for us again in the future. And that is really, seems to be the future of our office right now. And of course, they're being paid less than attorneys would be paid. But if you are going to authorize additional money for the sheriff's office and the courts, we are going to again ask that one attorney position be funded again. I think I made the case the last time I spoke in my presentation for just comparing us with Yavapai County, the fact that we have approximately 10 less prosecutors doing more cases than are being done in Yavapai County right now. If you are not going to give the court the additional positions, then this is a moot discussion, because we're okay with where we're at now. But if you do give it to the courts and the sheriff's office has more people, we're going to need this position. When we asked for it, and we're still asking for it, we're not asking for it to be done right now. We can delay having that position filled going forward in the future.
Thank you, Attorney Smith. I appreciate that. Lisa Sonstein?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisors. One of the things that we would like to ask for is a position that was recommended in the budget for a disclosure position for our office. In the past 2 months, we've had an incredible amount of disclosure that's come in where we're using flash drives, having to disclose it. So we're spending approximately $4,000 annually on this, the flash drives, the external flash drives. What we're asking for is to not fund the disclosure position and to be able to go with the unlimited storage that Exxon Justice Premier would provide us with. That would help us be able to disclose, not have to use the flash drives any longer, which would save staff time. Approximately the 6 current employees we have, 5 hours a week, it would be a savings annually of about $46,677. It would also help because all of our digital evidence would be on a single platform, and we'd be able to disclose to our public defense offices, public defender, and legal advocate, the digital evidence in this manner, which would save their staff time as well. Currently, smartphone storage capacity, it's as large as 1 terabyte. And we continue to receive on primarily drug cases, huge phone downloads. And we are asking that instead of funding the staff position, that the software would be funded in our FY26 budget. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Donna Peterson. Judge Moss, you're on deck.
Good morning. My name is Donna Peterson. I'm here to represent Kingman Main Street, and I would like to read a letter that was delivered to your offices last Friday, and I hope you've had a chance to read it and consider it. It's dated May 29th, and it's regarding funding for the restoration of the historic Mojave County Courthouse. To the honorable members of the Mojave County Board of Supervisors, it is our understanding that the board is considering allocating a portion of the current budget surplus to renovate the historic courthouse on Spring Street. Kingman Main Street is thrilled to hear this and strongly urges you to approve the proposed funding. The courthouse has stood vacant for many years. We believe it is urgent to act now to prevent further deterioration of this important community asset. The Kingman Main Street mission is to make the heart of Kingman a vibrant center of economic and cultural activity, while partnering with public and private stakeholders to rekindle community pride, capitalize on our unique physical assets and history, and encourage downtown revitalization and investment. The original courthouse, constructed circa 1915, is one of, if not the most iconic buildings in our county. Advocating for the rehabilitation of this historic building directly aligns with our mission, and we consider its restoration a vital step toward downtown revitalization. Practically speaking, a restored facility will complement the new Justice Center, by further alleviating overcrowding. It's a win-win. Thank you for your consideration. Kingman Main Street respectfully requests you find this renovation project, and we thank you.
For your comments. Judge Moss.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and County Manager, elders, thank you for allowing me to speak. I will say that I'm probably beating a dead horse, and I apologize for my tone. I've been fighting a bug for the last few weeks. But the courts support the modified option C that was presented. That takes care of our needs for the near future through at least fiscal year 27, if my math is holding up correctly. And it would allow us to make significant inroads in the ever-increasing workload and maintain some semblance of balance. It wouldn't solve the problem. We'd still be lopsided, but it would make it perhaps more manageable going forward. I also would like to support, again, the $6 million capital improvement portion of the modified option C. I think that's a necessary project, not just for the city of Kingman and Kingman Main Street and the economic development which is going on downtown, but also for all of Mojave County, which tends to congregate in that area, and also to preserve the history of Mojave County, while at the same time creating the workspace that we'll need on the future. This came to me as I was watching Luke's very able presentation, Director Moynihan's very able presentation. But if Supervisor Borelli vacates the Lake Havasu Court Complex, that means we'll have potential to additional courtroom space when we talk about further expansion, which will be necessary probably around fiscal year 27-28. But that would free up the space that we might need, and so it could potentially be done in a cost-effective manner. That's to plant the seed for future discussions. I don't know if that tree will grow, but I think it's something to look forward to, and it may be very cost-effective. So I appreciate the time you've provided me. I will reiterate again, the courts support the modified option C, and I'm more than willing to answer any questions you may have, though I may have to take another cough drop to do that.
Thank you, Judge Moss. We'll call you back up if there's questions.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask Director Moynihan to come back up to the podium, please. And we're going to go back to Supervisor Letman so that he can continue his question.
So I'll make this part quick. I had some questions about Parks and Rec and some capital request items in there for Davis Camp and Hualapai Mountain Park. So Director Letowski or... So in Davis Camp, which I obviously support rehabilitating to any extent that we can do, there's a request in there for $100,000 to resurface the basketball court, which is an outdoor court. I'm in Davis Camp 2 to 3 days a week, and I'm not sure I see a lot of people using the basketball court. So my point isn't to justify it, but to set that one aside before you come back to us to ask about that one. Right. But I was really curious about the $300,000 for park models, and I think directionally I understand where you're headed with this in terms of providing more rental space.
Right.
Could you amplify a little bit what that request is all about?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Letman, I believe you're referring to our 5-year capital plan, so that would not be part of this FY26 budget. And so as a result,
26. Okay, go on. It's all right.
So as a result, there is always has been a perceived need for the patrons at Davis Camp, particularly those that overnight, to have a more expanded recreation area by which they can better enjoy especially their overnight, their longer stay experience. So that kind of explains the basketball court potential resurfacing. We've always looked at potential for pickleball, et cetera, type of activities in that area. But that again is more of a 5-year plan and could always be reevaluated. And with regard to the park models, we've always contemplated the notion of trying to bring some additional lodging to both Wallapai Mountain Park and updating some of the cabins that we currently have, or actually expanding upon that with some park models. Whenever we can look at more lodging alternatives, the nice thing about it is that we already have the staff on hand, so there's very little expense increase on that except for that capital investment. But what we have is the staff on hand to support if we were to make that capital investment into lodging. Sawmill RV Park is another good example where we wouldn't have to increase staffing if we were to somehow find the grant funds necessary to actually construct.
Okay, so it was, going through the backup, it was on, and I support the addition of the park models. That just makes sense. I couldn't determine where that money was coming from. Is that coming out of an enterprise fund, or is that actually coming out of the capital improvement fund?
These potential projects, and again, I emphasize potential, would be funded specifically under Fund 216 under the Parks Enterprise Fund.
Okay, good. Up at Hualapai Mountain Park, there's a $300,000 request for this year for an ADA trailhead. And look, I absolutely support the need for access for disabled individuals. The trails up in Hualapai Mountain Park, I mean, at my age, even I have trouble getting over some of them. And I don't consider myself disabled by any stretch. Could you, how could I word this? I completely support the role of ADA in giving disabled individuals access to recreational opportunity. Where are we planning an ADA trailhead, which it just seems like an oxymoron almost at 7,000 feet up in this park?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Lettman, that would also be part of a 5-year plan, a look ahead. There, from staff's perspective, is a standing opportunity starting at the ranger station area to establish a pathway, if you will, that has a very limited reach. It's not going to be an expansive path, but to allow those with disabilities potentially to enjoy that type of recreation. Generally what happens is, I know, speaking, even though he's not here, our Parks Administrator, his intent focuses on always looking toward grant funds, to take on those projects. So if you're looking at a very nominal investment of Parks Enterprise funds for a substantial return in grant funds, a project like that could be palatable because it could actually tap into certain grant opportunities that only make those type of improvements.
Okay, if it's doable, we obviously support it for that kind of access. That I understand.
And that would be an FY30. We have that in our 5-year plan. So generally,
I wanted to switch over to the Mojave County Fairgrounds. So in the account for the fairgrounds itself, you obviously got rents. I assume that's where we are renting out the 3 buildings.
Yes.
Then you have a category called charges for services, and it's not large. It's only $62,000. What's the difference between a rent and a charge for service?
A rent would be, as you described, the actual rental of the buildings itself. There are certain, when I look under the charges for services, there are certain elements of our fairgrounds fees by which staff is providing, certain supplemental services, whether it be law enforcement coverage or other types of ancillary amenities with those core rentals. Those would probably fall under our revenues for the charges for services.
Okay. My favorite line in the fairground is operating transfers, and you have a plan there of, out of their $507,000 in revenue, $341,000 of it is operating transfers. Transfer from where?
Great question. Our master fund for the fairgrounds and fair is the Mojave County Fairgrounds Fund. That would be Fund 864. We do maintain, for accounting purposes, a separate budget for the fair, but that usually toward the end of the year, we capture the net profit under the Mojave County Fair Fund and interdepartment transfer it to the 864 Fairgrounds Fund. So ultimately, it just rolls into one single fund and it's cash on it.
Well, if you take a look at the math, then it's obvious we're pulling a loss of about $341,000, okay, on the fairgrounds if you pull that transfer out. And I'm not looking for a reply. I guess that was just a statement. When you,
I should add, Supervisor, that the fair profit is north of $300,000. So you see that as an operating transfer into the fairgrounds fund. So it's actually a profit transfer into the fairgrounds fund. And we like to actually end the fair fund at the end of the fiscal year at a zero balance. So we transfer.
and that makes sense.
Correct. So we transfer any, so we transfer any surplus monies, which is actually north of $300,000 into our fairgrounds fund.
Okay, so the whole issue of the fairgrounds and the county fair is certainly something I'd like to take a look at in the second half of this year. Let's just do a deeper dive into what makes sense for the fairgrounds. That's all the questions I have, other than for the judge and
Director
Attorney
Latowski, before you
Smith.
leave, on that point of the fairgrounds, it looked like total actual revenues in 24 were 879,190, and then in 25 actual revenues were 623,392. Is that accurate? And if so, why this significant decrease?
The fairgrounds is targeting a projected revenue of $164,000, and then of course had interdepartmental transfer from the fair fund of $317,000.
Is there an opportunity to do more events?
Pardon? Oh, sorry.
Is there an opportunity to do more events?
There's always that opportunity. Generally, we have been having good success, especially during the period April to October, in booking most of our expo center for regular events. We just had the gem show, etc., some home and garden fair. So it generally is a pretty popular booking with the gun show and various auctions during the months April through October. It does get a little bit light between the November, December, January season, but we're as part of this particular board meeting, we do have on the agenda later in regular agenda an item to reclassify our fairground superintendent to an event planner. And again, that's the approach there is to emphasize booking more events as well as the production of the Maui County Fairs.
Great. Well, the fairgrounds has been on my radar since 21, and I'd definitely also like to do a deeper dive later this year. Director Mornian. Does anybody else have any questions for Director Mornian? Supervisor Borelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Moore, can you, let's talk about the sheriff's office. How much traditionally or historically has the sheriff at the end of the fiscal year turned money back into the budget?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Borelli. So I believe you're referring to the salary savings that, so when the sheriff has vacant positions, and we have budgeted for those positions during the year, that budgeted salary and benefits allocation does get returned to the general fund, since his department is funded by the general fund. I don't have the actual year-over-year figures, but he has had significant number of vacancies. I believe the last couple of years it was certainly north of 1 million. When you look at the patrol side of the house as well as the detention center, so it is a significant sum due to the number of vacancies that his department has been carrying for the last several years.
Mr. Chair, excluding the personnel, okay, has the sheriff been under budget every year on his operating expenses?
I would have to look into that and get back to you on that, Supervisor Borelli. I know that the bulk of their budget savings is derived from personnel. Sorry, I can't answer that right off the cuff.
Thank you.
Supervisor Martin, did you have any questions up to this point? Just want to give you the opportunity, Supervisor Gould. Any other questions up to this point? Supervisor Lettman. Okay, Supervisor Gould, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Mornian, we were talking about Horizon 6, and that it appeared that the grant that we didn't get is still in the budget. Is that true?
Supervisor Gould, I believe so. I believe that was due to the timing of when we received word that we were not receiving that particular grant, and that will be removed between the tentative and the final budgets. We always have a number of items between preliminary and tentative, and then again between tentative and final, just due to the timing, because we have a set timeline for the budget process, but these grant applications and when we receive word on whether grants are received or not is rather fluid. I think Manager Elders has something to add.
Manager Elders, please.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Gould, we are pursuing other opportunities. So having funds in the budget just as a placeholder is good. If we don't get the funding or we get a portion of it, we'll update you, the board, and then any expenditure will be at your approval. But we need to maintain that in the budget. So when we receive funds, at least we have the ability to receive them and then expend them. As you know, today's budget decision by the board sets the ceiling, so if we don't have it in the budget, we won't be able to spend it going forward.
And I understand that, County Manager. It's just, I'm curious how many other things are in there that aren't really in there.
Supervisor Gould, maybe just to clarify a little bit more. So if we have federal grant revenue or state grant revenue budgeted, in the case of the grant that we're speaking of that we received word wasn't going to be approved, if there's other federal grant that can be applied for or other state grants, depending on which budget line item you're looking at, we would typically leave that earmarked in there based on the recommendations from the department, because they're the ones that know which grants and how much they will be applying for, whether it is now, whether it is early in FY26, whether it is late in FY26. To the county manager's comment, we need that available in there in order for it to be accepted and spent in the current fiscal year in the event that it does get approved and we do receive the grant funds. So there's always going to be a number of grant line items in the budget where we're budgeting for it, we have not yet received the money, but it has to be included in there.
And I understand that, and I'm sure there's a way to account for it. It should be a way that we can actually understand it, not being accountants.
Supervisor Gould, we can give you an update after the close of the fiscal year of what was budgeted versus what actually came in on the revenue side for grants. That's some information that we could provide if that helps add some clarity.
It might. And since we're talking about grants, I know we lost, what was it, $1.2 million in grants after DOGE went through the federal budget, and we're apparently backfilling some of that with general fund money. And I'm curious whether what we're backfilling is actually mandated services. And under my definition of mandated means the state says we have to do it. Or were they things where we took the grant money because the grant money was available, and we might not necessarily do that same act with, say, general fund money?
Supervisor Gould, is there a specific department or grant that you're referring to?
No, these were health department grants. It was the money that got pulled out of the health department, a month ago, which is part of with the backfilling of moving of money around that we're now putting general fund money into the health unit.
Supervisor Gould, yes, correct. And I will just say that in discussions with the public health director last week, there's still it's still a fluid picture with those grant funds. There's some grants that have been cut, but the public health director received word just last week that their ELC grant, at least for the current fiscal year, that they should begin charging to that again. They had received stop work orders in March for that particular grant. Those stop work orders were rescinded, and so the department was told to start charging expense to that grant again. It's still uncertain whether there will be grant funding available from that particular grant for public health next year, and so it's one of those evolving situations where we continue to try and monitor it. The department itself is doing what it can. They have a number, most of their positions are split funded across a grant, multiple grants, a portion general funded, and so they are constantly reallocating what work certain employees are doing, whether they're doing work that can be charged to a grant or whether they're doing work that can be charged to a different grant. It's always a moving picture.
So when they're doing their time ticket, are they allocating time to those projects, or did they allocate the entire day to a project?
Supervisor Gould, I would need to rely on the assistant public health director, but typically it is very, very down to the minutia. You know, if they're spending half a day working on grant-related work, they would charge those hours to the grant. I look at community services because they're also very heavily grant-funded, and I know that they have very detailed splits on what work is being performed and where that is actually being charged to.
I think you've got a helper from the public health if you want to talk about that.
Good morning, Supervisor Gould. Yes, they do track by the hour what work is being done on each grant, or versus the different projects.
Thank you, sir. That is all.
Supervisor Borelli, I think you had a comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just for clarification on example of Horizon 6. So if the grant doesn't come through, we budget for it anticipating there's a grant. There's got to be a match. And if the grant doesn't come through, we can use contingency funds for that to continue the project.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Borelli, Horizon 6 is a standalone improvement district. We cannot put general fund into it. It will have to be either through a grant or assessment on the receiver and the beneficiary of those benefits. That is a clear distinction that we need to adhere to.
Unless the board decides to dissolve the improvement district.
Did you say dissolve?
Yes.
Yeah, that is a completely different discussion, and we would engage our county attorney's office with us to make sure that what we're doing would be, understood.
Here's my point. This is a public safety issue. We're talking fire suppression equipment. If a fire starts in Horizon 6 and drifts over into the other side of the street, which is Lake Havasu City, and that catches other properties on fire, or for that matter, vice versa. I don't want to see this nightmare like they had in Altadena and Palo Verdes in California. Here in Mojave County, when we have the opportunity to figure out how to untangle the red tape, let's get this thing done once and for all. We modified the water system by upgrading to where there's literally no fire suppression equipment. There's plenty of water, plenty of piping, but there's not enough water pressure. They need 1,000 gallons per minute for those fire hydrants to be unred tagged. So without putting an additional property tax on the homeowners, because this is from y'all's data. Out of the $426,000 is collected in property taxes from those 307 properties, the vast majority of that goes to Lake Havasu Unified School District, Wave, Community College, it's almost $269,000. 75% goes out to, as a matter of fact, it's even being funding is Fire District Assistance Fund, $5,000. Got the TV district. We have all this money going out, and there's really no support that they're getting from the county from their property taxes. Actually, $104,000 goes this year, stays back to Mojave County. So the funding source is there. I don't think we need to raise taxes on trying to get petitions of 51% of the residents there.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Supervisor Borelli. We don't disagree with you. I'm just making a statement. There were, if my memory serves me correctly, upward of $3 million set aside for upgrading that water system through the ARPA funds. That project was delivered on. That project is complete. That was the source approved by the board. There is no more funds to be delivered to that district from those dollars, and what we're pursuing is federal or state grants that would support this kind of project, and this project would be eligible for. If we succeed, we can move forward. If we do not succeed, we have one or two options. Either we do nothing, or in order to do it, it would have to be an assessment base. We could not put general fund money into it. That's my point, Supervisor Borelli. And it's a statute. It's driven by statute. It's a legal matter. It's not staff pushing back or not agreeing with you. It's really just a matter of what we can legally do with general fund, and this is a standalone improvement district.
Well, Mr. Chairman, and to that point, when you use the ARPA funds to replace all those pipes, Director Lutowski told me before you use that, you had to go out to the residents there, and they had to sign a petition to approve going in debt to replace those pipes. And when the citizens saw that price tag of like $30,000 per property, obviously they said no. But then you use the ARPA fund. So is it because it came from the federal government grant? Is that the point?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Borelli, the ARPA funds had a list of qualified recipients and projects that they can go to, and it was broadband, water, sewer, you name it, roads later on were added. So we worked with our county attorney's office and the board to ensure that every project met the qualification and was approved by the board as a whole. So yes, the federal dollars that came through the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, were eligible for water projects, and some were allocated to the Horizon 6, some were allocated to Golden Valley Improvement District, and some were allocated to water projects that were not an improvement district. Those were qualified projects, and some have been completed, and some are still underway today, because we have until the end of next year.
So the answer is yes, it's because it was grant funded is the only way you could use that money.
Yes, Supervisor Borelli.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Latman, let's get back into your questions. I think you said you had a question for the county attorney. Is that
county
correct?
attorney.
Attorney Smith, would you come back to the podium, please?
First of all, I'm glad Ireland worked out, and she's on our staff now. That's great. Thank
you.
I was a little lost on the presentation. How much money do you need to staff the additional attorney you're looking for?
Approximately $113,000.
And is that inclusive or exclusive of the other item that was spoken to about efficiencies created by not doing memory sticks? And that just completely lost me.
I'm glad that you asked that. So I wasn't sure exactly how much time we were going to have, and that's why I had Lisa Samstag sign up separately. But that item is in the tentative budget. We had approved by the county finance director and the county manager that we would get a new disclosure person. What we're asking for is, in lieu of that, if the board approves it, if you don't, we'll take the position that we're getting. But because of the amount of phone dumps and other things that are coming in, we met with, and Lisa Samstag met with, along with Alex Shelton, who's here from our office, Nate McDaniel from IT. And what we're asking for is, in lieu of hiring a position, hiring a new person, instead to modify the budget and to purchase the software program. Now, it will cost $15,000 a year more than the person that we asked for. Of course, you think, oh, it's always more. So it would be $15,000 more. However, we estimated that it will save $4,000 approximately a year in flash drive and other costs, which means the net detriment to the county is $11,000. And then just doing an efficiency type thing, my manager, office manager, Lisa Samstag, looked at it and figured it would be about 5 hours for each of the 6 employees that are in our disclosure bureau that look at Axon and do the phone dump stuff. It would be about 5 hours a week this software program would save for all 6 employees. So we're estimating, and that's just a gross estimate, that it would save about $46,000 a year. Additionally, in talking to Nate McDaniel, who I again talked to again this morning, he could explain the other benefits as far as the public defender's office, the legal defender's office, and just county IT and digital storage. He would be able to explain that, how it would benefit the county. So that's what we'd be asking for, Supervisor Letman. It would be for somebody to make a motion to, instead of the person that's in the tentative budget now, to approve the software program that we want to purchase.
Okay, so I'm trying to craft some language for the upcoming motion. So again, how much for the extra county attorney?
$113,000.
That's what we needed to know.
Mr. Chairman.
Manager Elders.
To clarify just a quick point, and I am not opposing anything that you heard from the county attorney. The request to switch them would benefit the county attorney's office. As you heard, the cost is close enough. So if I was to give you a number, I would say add $15K to the 113 and make it 130, Supervisor Letman. But furthermore, that software, the full set of services that it provides today, the sheriff's department has it and the courts has similar. If the county attorney gets it, and they should, we're not opposing it, it truly leaves then the public defender, legal advocate, because they're all a part of this law and justice system that we have. So if it's the board wishes to proceed and fund the software in lieu of the position, I would suggest that the board be mindful and recognize that we will need it for the fourth leg of that justice system, which is the public defender, legal advocate, and so on, because they all use it. And it has to do with uploading into the cloud and storing and such. And if you wish to hear a little bit more about that, Nathan could come down and provide some additional insight as well.
Any other questions from our board members? Thank you, Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Attorney, would that be your own account, or does it piggyback onto the account that the Sheriff's Department already has with Axon? It seems, if everybody here, if we're going to have an account for the sheriff, an account for the attorney, account for the public defender, it seems like they'd roll that up into one package.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, it needs to be for a variety of reasons, and Tara could probably talk more about it, but it would be separate accounts. It would be separate accounts for ethical reasons, where we would need to be separate from the public defense offices. But
Procurement Director Acton, you want to come up and add some clarity?
I was fully not prepared for this question, but I think we're talking about two
It's
different
my goal
things.
is to ask you questions
Yes,
you're
I
unprepared
appreciate
for.
that. And it's even before noon. So Supervisor Gould, I think your question is more about like the contract and getting the services in place. And we have worked with the IT department. We have an agreement in place for that kind of information. Their logins would be separate. Where they hold the information would be separate. But from a contracting standpoint, there are lots of options available, cooperative contracts, things like that, to purchase the software and have the capability that would still allow each of the departments to sort of, I'm going to use IT terms here, have a firewall between how the information is shared
I would think
from
so.
an ethical standpoint.
And I don't think you're buying the software anyway. I think Axon, it's a
You're
cloud
buying the
it's
license for the
cloud-based,
software. Mhm.
right? And they're building a big facility down in Scottsdale. It's been a big controversy also.
Mhm.
But I think Axon makes money on that storage. That's how they make money. It's not on the hardware. It's on their system.
I think the only, and thank you, Director Mournian, the only question, we'd want to look into it and determine if the license is based on user or if it's the number of users logged in at one time. So there would probably be a little bit more information that we'd need to gather to get that together. Again, I'm not prepared for this, but we would get a contract in place that would make sure that all of the right protections are in place between the various legal divisions. And I think we could find the support for that. It would just be a matter of figuring out how do we configure the contract.
Thank you, Director.
Director Atkin, before you leave, and obviously we would want to look at making sure that there's an out for the county just in case we ever needed to do that, right? We don't want to get another Acela
So
situation.
what we've been trying to do anytime we enter into software-related agreements, either software as a service, sort of cloud-based, is they have a lot of their own terms and conditions. We, of course, review them. We've been trying, if they're automatic renewals, limiting them to no more than 5 years total of automatic renewals so that we can reevaluate. And then we do try to always push back and have an option to exit the contract with so many days' notice with or without cause. But not always are they willing to agree to that, but we would work on that.
Always have to try, right?
Yep.
Golden rule of contracting, those who have the gold make the rules, right? Supervisor Lettman.
I had a question for Luke, unrelated to this. On option C, does this meet the requirements from the sheriff that was expressed to us at the previous meeting regarding additional funding for pay raises?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Lettman, yes, we've worked with the sheriff's office since the budget workshop. The number is smaller than what was presented at the budget workshop. The sheriff made some changes to what he was proposing, but this is a deal that the sheriff has said he can live with.
Okay, so option C meets the needs of the sheriff, meets the needs of the courts, but doesn't meet the needs of the requirement from the county attorney's office, also the capital improvement requests for a morgue, an office for District 3, and Law and Order Justice Center Phase 2. Would that be correct?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Lettman, it does include the $6 million in funding for Phase 2B of the Law and Justice Center. So on the court side of things, it includes $430,000 approximately for those 2 court commissioners hired at different points in the year, as well as the funding to complete Phase 2B.
So all it's missing is morgue
include,
plus office. Okay.
Yeah, and it does not include any funding for the morgue, or either on the one-time expense or the recurring expense if those services were to be brought in-house. That is included in option D.
Sheriff Schuster, I see you observing from the back. Do you want to have any comment or no? Okay, he's declining. Any additional discussion? Supervisor Borelli, thank you.
Just for clarification, for the sheriff's office, we're talking about the personnel raises, correct?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Borelli, yes. So what the sheriff had proposed was some compensation adjustments kind of across the board in his patrol side of the house. The modified option C, since we just went through what it includes for the courts, on the sheriff's side of things, it includes a total of 5 new detention officer positions, 3 new sheriff deputy positions, as well as that compensation adjustments.
How much you don't roughly remember how much that is? Compensation?
The compensation in FY26 is just under 600,000.
Yeah, okay. And the sheriff was satisfied with that?
Supervisor Borelli, that's what, I got the number from his recommendation. He went through his entire roster of personnel and came up with something that he could live with, and that's where we arrived at.
Okay, and that's this year. What about, is there going forward after that?
Supervisor Borelli, yes. We estimated that the adjustments in year 2 would be 460,000 approximately, and then of course, that's on top of those year 1 raises carrying over. It's kind of a rolling snowball, so those costs continue in future years as well.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you for your presentation and all the dialogue. Personally, I'm going to support modified option C. I think that those, all the things that are included in that are things that the District 1 office can get behind, but I want to poll one last time. Supervisor Martin, did you have any comments at all or discussion that you'd like to cover today? Supervisor Borelli, any remaining questions, points?
No more questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Supervisor Gould, same questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And last, Supervisor Lettman, any other discussion points?
No, I think I've asked enough questions today, but are you ready for a motion?
I would open it up to the full board if they were ready to provide a motion.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and move to approve option C as our tentative budget going forward with the addition of $113,000 for the county attorney's office and an addition of $15,000 for purchase of software.
For that motion.
Yeah. I'd like to modify that motion.
You want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Does that also include the D3 office?
Supervisor Borelli, not at present with the motion that was made.
I'd like to make a motion that we include the D3.
We have Supervisor Borelli, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have a motion on the floor. We're looking for a second for that. And unless you want to modify.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and modify the option to include the $600,000 in the capital improvement fund for District 3 and an allotment of $4 million for a county morgue.
Yep.
Chairman Lingenfelter, if I just may add, whichever motion is approved, it needs to also include setting that truth and taxation hearing for the 16th, as well as the special board meeting for adoption of the final budget on June 16th.
So included.
Discussion.
We need a second.
Yeah. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Yeah, in a second. I have a point of discussion. I would, from District 1, be willing to support the modified option C. When it comes to the office, I certainly want Supervisor Borelli to have an office. I do have some questions, though, for Director Latosky. $600,000 for, I want to know what the square footage of this is and what it equates to per square foot construction and design cost. That seems extremely high. $600,000 for how long, or how big of an office?
Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, I believe the target was approximately 800 to 1,000 square feet.
$600,000 for 1,000 square foot office.
Inclusive.
So $600 a square foot. That's that's ridiculous. How does it, I mean, $600 per square foot. How does it get to be that much?
We, Supervisor Lingenfelter, members of the board, we've had discussions, preliminary, albeit, with suppliers of both modular units, steel units, and it really weaves into the commercial requirements for construction versus residential. There are so many different layers of requirements that are placed on a commercial building versus residential, and with the utility connections on site, albeit we do have a nice hard surface site right on the center of the Lake Havasu City Senior Center. But our estimates were indicating with design, construction, some contingency that it could approach that $600,000 level. We certainly hope not. And perhaps with dialing in a formal design that could lend to a little bit better estimating on the construction end. So from our staff side, we were primarily reaching out to contractors with a concept proposal. doing the best that we could to dial it into a professional office, 800 to 1,000 square feet. But those are some of the costs we were receiving. We were receiving building figures that were upwards of $300,000 just for the building.
And that's for a typical design bid build?
That's correct. The 600,000 estimate comes based on a design bid build approach.
It's not like a prefabricated thing? I mean, because that can be more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, I mean, if that's what you're paying in Havasu for design and construction, good Lord. And that's not even including furniture, fixtures, and equipment, is it?
That's correct. It's not.
So it's going to be,
No,
what's
we
that
can-
amount?
You use the same furniture.
That should be a nominal cost.
Yeah. I got a little bit of heartburn on that one just because of the cost. I definitely want them to have a professional public office, but that seems like a lot. And as far as the morgue, I'm not willing to support funding for building a morgue until we see the results of the RFP that we've directed staff to go out with. I mean, they're going out with an RFP, and you might have a provider that has a solution that's going to save us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm not willing to support allocating funding for building a morgue until we see the results of that RFP. I don't think that that's appropriate. But I will support the modified option C. You have a comment, Supervisor Borelli?
Yeah, yes, and to that point, because once these bids, for example, the D3 building, so once those bids come in, we have to still do the final approval on that. And you can tell them they better sharpen their pencils, because I agree, 600 grand is it's ridiculous. You can buy a house with that. But unfortunately, because all the commercial requirements, fire sprinklers, all that kind of stuff, but it is, at least it's on county property. And going forward in the future, this is a project for this may not even be done in my tenure. It could be happening to somebody else's, but at least that flag is planted right in the heart of the district. But we still get final approval when the bids come in, correct?
Yes, absolutely, Supervisor.
Okay. Gives me an opportunity to lean on some people to sharpen their pencils.
Supervisor Martin, you have a comment or discussion points?
I do. I was all on board till we started adding more and more and more on this, and $600,000 for put Sonny up somewhere, and $400,000 or $4 million or whatever for a morgue. I can't do that. I can't buy into that either. So, I could say in the beginning what we were proposing, that was okay, but we kept adding on, and I'm not okay with that now.
Supervisor Borelli, you have another comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree, it is a lot of money, but we're talking about capital improvement funds, one-time expenditure. We have to start planning for the future. And just also, for just a little fun fact, the state auctioned off 627 acres in basically Lake Havasu vicinity, but it's actually in county property, right behind the mall. That 630 acres is going to be on the tax rolls now. That state land was hoarding. That's all private land, private development, and that's going to be what's in District 5.
Super,
But,
Chairman.
that's 600 acres is going to go on the tax rolls. So there's revenue right there.
I've got one more follow-up, Luke. So we have a contingency that's being included in the budget. So is there any reason that item with that contingency already approved, that we couldn't have another item come back later in the year when we're a little more dialed in as a separate item?
Chairman Lingenfelter, for the D3 office?
Yeah.
Yes, the board could vote later on in the year to tap the general fund contingency.
You can't
for
spend
that.
more than what was adopted, but you can always spend less than what's adopted, and
Correct.
it's already adopted.
Correct. The contingency that we have budgeted is just over 12.8 million in the modified option C proposal. So yes, the funding is there. That 12.8 million is budgeted contingency, and so the board could come back at a later date with a proposal to fund a District 3
Thank
office.
you, sir. Answered my question. Supervisor Letman, did you have a?
Yeah, so just to go back to the previous meeting, we have to set a ceiling today, okay? So for Supervisor Martin, I actually don't support the building of a morgue, but I understand that if a majority of the board members decide to award the medical examiner contract to another party other than the incumbent, we're going to have to come up with a morgue. Okay, so the only purpose in putting it in there is a placeholder to set it aside so it is there in case we need to use it. I personally don't think we need to build a morgue at all, but I think you got to, if I understood this process correctly, it needs to be in there in case we need to have it. But we would be coming back for a separate vote on this anyway.
Supervisor Letman, what I think it's kind of a minutia thing. If we add it in district or in option D, you're going to be pulling it out of the contingency anyways, right?
Chairman Lingenfelter, so we have, and if I could just get the slide up on the screen again, it's might help to illustrate this. So we have a budgeted contingency, and then we have that bottom line on these slides in yellow that we've been talking about, which is the surplus fund balance, and that's above and beyond the contingency. Generally speaking, that budgeted contingency line item, we don't want to be funding our capital project needs out of the budgeted contingency. That is truly the emergency fund. It is in there, it is in the budget in case something, some sort of catastrophe happens, or there's some great opportunity that comes along that we didn't budget for. We want that money there. And so when we're talking about funding our capital needs, we've been primarily talking about funding them out of the surplus fund balance that is above and beyond the contingency. But with that being said, the question that was just asked a minute ago was, could we fund it out of the budgeted contingency? Because that budgeted contingency is part of that ceiling that we are setting with the tentative budget.
Director Mordian, so the surplus dollar amount that you're referencing, is that going to be approved as a part of the budget as well? And if it is, I think I heard you say earlier in your discussion that you were going to have a policy come back on what to do with those funds. Is that accurate?
Chairman Lingenfelter, so as of right now, that would be an unbudgeted, basically fund balance, and so it would not be included in that ceiling. It's basically not being appropriated unless the board designates it to a specific use. And if it's not designated to a specific use right now, it's basically unbudgeted, and so it's not included in that expenditure ceiling.
That fund balance. What's the fund balance sitting at?
So with the modified option C and the addition of approximately $130,000 for the county attorney's office, we'd be right at about $16.5 million in unbudgeted surplus fund balance. If we add in the District 3 office, then we're down at around 15.9.
Okay, so your point is we could remove both of these items out and simply come back and revisit them as needed using the unbudgeted surplus funds?
No, Supervisor Letman. If the board wants to put those in to the budget later after we've adopted a tentative budget, they would need to come out of the budgeted contingency.
Mr. Chairman.
Manager Elters.
Understanding the discussion and the intent of the board, just to offer a thought, understanding the reserve balance being at 16.5, give or take, and to give the board the ultimate flexibility to do what the board feels the county needs are. We could include into the modified C option both District Office 3 as well as the morgue. It would reduce that fund balance from 16.5 to 12, but give the board, those projects will not move forward automatically. They will come back to the board for design. They'll come back to the board for award of contract for construction and operation. So it will give the board the flexibility to do what is necessary and not hamper and not undermine your choice-making process.
Very good. Understood. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Yeah, could you restate the motion, please, Madam Clerk?
To modify option C with $113,000 for the county attorney, $15,000 for purchases, including setting a truth and taxation on June 16th, as well as a special board meeting for adoption of the final budget on June 16th. Also to include with the addition of $600,000 for District 3's building and $4 million for the morgue.
Did you have anybody have any other discussion? Supervisor Martin?
I guess I'm confused on this thing. So what we're saying, Sam, is if we vote for this whole package, I mean, we're really taking a hit with our savings account. And I think it should be clear that we cannot continue to operate like that, because we're going to someday wake up and say, uh-oh, we don't have any money. So, but do I understand this motion here would allow for all of the needs right now that are identified, and that we've got the money to cover it, and that's what this motion is all about, though. But it'll cover the needs that we have identified right now as being critical.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Martin, the motion as it is would cover the cost of the items that the board has and staff has identified. It would not automatically incur the cost. It would provide the board the option to come back later on and say, we're going to deliver all of it, or we're going to deliver none of it, or we're going to deliver part one but not the other. It truly just lays out the path to move forward and for the board to make those decisions subsequently in the next fiscal year of FY26.
Okay, thank you. I understand that.
Subsequent to additional public procurement items that'll be coming back to the Board of Supervisors, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Supervisor Gould, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Mournian, if the board votes this budget and they vote to adopt the tax rates that were expressed, as example, this is structurally unbalanced, correct?
Chairman Langfelter, Supervisor Gould, that is correct. This would have us have the county at on the recurring side of expenses, it would have us at about $1.75 million deficit structurally for FY26.
Bring the slide back up that shows that? Or is there a slide?
Can we put the slide back up? So the line net recurring revenue expense, you can see on here it's 2.1 million. As I said before, this does not include the removal of the sheriff's radio upgrades, which was about $550K. But then we have also talked about adding back about $130,000 for the county attorney's office, and so that's where I come up with that figure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm going to call for the question now. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you all for the discussion. That's item 48. Go to the consent agenda now. Items 5 through 40. Supervisor Martin, would you like to pull any items from
Yes,
consent?
I'd like to see item Item 30.
Item 30, thank you. Supervisor Borelli, would you like to pull any items from consent? Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 28, number 33, and number 38.
Thank you very much. And Supervisor Lettman, would you like to
I have
pull
no
any
items to pull.
And I will pull no items, so I'm looking for motion to approve the consent agenda today, minus items 28, 30, 33, and 38.
So moved.
For that motion, second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? As appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item number 28, Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item asks for 1.27 miles of unpaved road to be brought into the regular maintenance program. This is way out in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing there on those 3 lots except for 3 cars are parked on one of these lots. To get there, you would go 25 miles down Alamo Road and then 5 more miles down Planet Ranch Road. There are hundreds of miles of unmaintained roads in the Yucca area. If we're going to start taking these things into the regular maintenance program, we should do it with some semblance of order. There's roads that are way more heavily traveled than this road. This is essentially a driveway to somebody's property is what this ends up being. If we want to start taking roads in Yucca, we should come up with a plan to do it and not do it willy-nilly. But I would move that this item be denied.
I'll second that.
Got a discussion point for Director Latosky. Director Latosky, if you come up, this says acknowledge receipt of and refer to Public Works a petition. This seems just like the very typical step. If somebody gathers signatures, they refer the petition to staff, and then we wait for you to do your analysis, technical analysis, and then you bring back either whether or not the board is recommended to take in a road or no. Is this just accepting a petition to review this?
Okay. Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, this is a very, very good question, and I wish to emphasize this, that by acknowledging and referring staff to this particular petition, the applicant may start undertaking improvements to the roads that he wishes to petition for county maintenance. He may, in fact, start spending money and improving these roads. So if the board doesn't have the appetite to accept these roads at a future meeting, because staff will bring these roads back, if and when they are improved by the applicant, staff may make a recommendation to the board that, yes, the applicant actually brought them up to county standards, and board, will you look to accept them for maintenance? But if the board at that time does not have the appetite to accept them for maintenance, then the applicant, has expended monies, possibly to an excess, because he doesn't necessarily have to, improve the roadway up to a high standard to at least access his property. The gentleman does have property in the area that he wishes to have these roads extended to. I hope I explained that well.
Sure. It's not my district.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
What's interesting is this is the regular maintenance program, which only requires one signature, the signature of the applicant. If you want to go in the tertiary program, I believe we then have to gather, 10 signatures. The tertiary program is the when we get around to it program. So apparently our standard is higher for the when we get around to it program than the regular program.
Yes. And Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, I'm glad you brought that point up as well, because I stopped this application. I actually asked my staff to reach out to the applicant. The right-of-way that's only in place right now is 30 feet. He would actually have to get an assignment of right-of-way from BLM because the property abuts BLM lands. The applicant actually wants to go ahead and do that if the board is accepting of this particular application. But I did make it quite clear that he could have pursued the tertiary route, but he wanted to pursue regular, which at a minimum requires 50-foot right-of-way, and then the improvement to county adopted standards.
Correct, where he could grade himself a nice one-lane road back and forth to his property and not have, which would be 12 feet wide versus this 50-foot wide road that would be accepted into the county program.
Thank you for the clarification. Any additional discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 30, Supervisor Martin.
Yes, this item I asked we pull at the request of a couple of constituents who are here today and would like to come up and say a few words about it.
Thank you for that. We do have a couple of people that have signed up to speak. First, Susan McAlpine, and second, Debbie Haskin. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. Hopefully I did that right. Hi, my name is Susan McAlpine, and I've lived at Lazy YU Phase 2 for over 20 years with my husband, Peter McAlpine. They got it, thank you. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and also for the opportunity and to thank the engineering department for submitting this petition to you. We really would like to support this petition for the study of specified Lazy YU roads, hopefully leading to some sort of repair of Tomahawk Drive, particularly in the hill area. I'd like to provide you with a historical perspective leading to the need for this study. Mrs. Haskin will then tell you what's going on right now with the issues. My husband Peter and I were instrumental in the effort in having Lazy YU main roads accepted into the Mojave County Road Maintenance Program in about 2011. We worked closely with Mike Hendricks and Colin Patillo to bring the designated roads up to and beyond county standards at the time. This exhibit that I have shows you exactly what the road looked like when it was approved by the county. We had spent like $40,000 or $50,000 as property owners to bring this up beyond what the county required. And what happened was we applied compacted stone material, or usually called millings, to the property that lasted for several years. It was actually in very, very good condition for a while. What happened was a few years ago, there was a trial program where the county applied road bond to the material. It was a nightmare from the beginning. It was a pretty much an ice-covered material. I mean, that's what it felt like when you drove on it. And the county did try to fix that by applying a small stone surface. It's been a nightmare ever since then. It's an extremely dangerous situation. People are driving on the wrong side of the road in order to avoid potholes, avoid the washboarding that happens. And part of this, in my belief and my husband's belief, is that the road bond material never set properly, and that continues to deteriorate and make grading this particular road an absolute nightmare for the county. So my husband Peter and I, and Mrs. Haskin, who's behind me, who'll tell you what it looks like today, really appreciate any efforts the county can make to resolve this situation. Vehicles are being damaged, real estate property values are being devalued. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Debbie Haskin. After she's done, I'd like to have Director Latosky to come up and give an overview of this project.
Hi, I'm Debbie Haskin, and we've lived up there for about 3.5 years. And basically, it's Lazy YU, Phase 2. You know about that. And I'm here on behalf of myself and my husband. And there are 52 houses up there, and encompasses over 2,800 acres. And basically, this road, I just called it major washboard. To drive on it, maximum speed safely is probably maybe 10 or 11 miles an hour. And it's just, and we totally appreciate the county grading it and everything, but they grade it once every 2 months. That lasts about 2 or 3 days, and we're just, basically bouncing off of it. So our request is that you pave it, chip seal it, anything you can do to help us to keep it safe and keep our vehicles in one piece without both bouncing all over the world. So basically, thank you very much, and I hope you take it into consideration to help us out.
Thank you for your comments. Director Latosky, can you come up and give an overview?
Thank you. I do have a couple of exhibits to show. This is a case where we have a county highway petition, and this is just to acknowledge and refer to staff for staff to perform an engineering report in regard to the 2.3 miles of roads being petitioned to be established as county highways. As you see in the diagram, the roads we mapped out are colored blue, and namely the main road would be Tomahawk Drive and extending the existing paved section in Lazy Bayou further westward. And connecting to a couple of other roadways that do serve residential developments, Truckwagon Drive and Bandit Drive. In the Lazy Bayou area itself, this is not necessarily going to be a road that serves any kind of regional travel function, but that will be up for our report to address. But I do want to address the very good comments that the speakers brought to your attention previously, and I was just up there yesterday. Our crews are actually going to be out blading the roadway here today, tomorrow. But what happens on the particular vertical curve and significant grades that come off that paved section, it does incur washboard effects. And you're going to see this every time you have a vertical curve and significant grades on the roadway. The downward force of the traffic, whether when they brake or even when they accelerate, braking causes some exaggerated downward force on the roadway, and that's how your washboard develops. It's going to happen every time we blade it, but there is a possibility, and we'll look at this in our engineering report, that perhaps a shorter section be established as a county highway, such as through this area, because there are opportunities from time to time, if the materials locally are present, that we can facilitate having some millings brought in. And again, we would bring this to the board as a capital improvement project if the board feels it necessary to perhaps tackle this vertical profile section where it seems to endure the hardest wear and tear on the roadway. That would be up to the board. But here it's just to acknowledge the county highway petition, and then staff would come back. I think we even set a date on April 18th with an engineer's report to produce our recommendation.
Thank you, Director Latosky. Is your engineer's report going to also include a conclusion and recommendation?
Yes, of course.
Any other questions for the board? Sorry, Supervisor Martin, thank you.
Yeah, my question in Director Latosky, looking at your picture, you can see that the material is basically back down to dirt. And therefore, I mean, it's going to be and like you say, unless something more significant is done, we're going to have this problem or forever and ever. Is that right?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Martin, that is correct. It's a relatively lower traveled roadway, but the washboarding problem will be a recurring one. Yeah.
So what our proposal now or today, what is your recommendation?
Supervisor Martin, my recommendation would be to allow staff to study. We're just seeking the board's approval to acknowledge this county highway petition, refer it back to staff, and then staff would look forward to studying the petition and the roads in question, and we will come back in August to produce our engineering recommendation for the board.
Okay, fine.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Latosky, don't county highways generally go somewhere?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, yes. That is going to be one of the main points of our engineering evaluation. We need to look at what regional traffic flow these particular roads serve, and as I pointed out before,
Generally, they're arterial roads that get people to certain places rather than residential roads to get people to their homes.
Correct, yes, namely place of place.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion we approve as presented.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? For the motion and a second, any additional discussion? Hearing none, all approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 33, Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious, what is the benefit to the county of this agreement with the Municipal Court of Kingman to provide them with a probation officer?
Got some folks coming down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and County Manager Elters. I'll let our Chief Probation Officer speak on that issue in detail, but in the brass tacks of it, it gets the city paying for the time. So the city compensates us for whatever time puts into it.
Good morning, Chairman. Morning. Supervisor Gould. We've had this program in place since 2007, and what this proposal does is just update that proposal from back then to get the payment for the probation officer to meet what our salary and FTE is for today. What they do is deal with cases that are kept at that level instead of brought up to the Superior Court, involving veterans and some DV that stay in that area. That officer provides the same service he would provide as a Superior Court probation officer, but just down at that level. And now they're going to pay for that instead of having, so there's really at this point, no cost to our county. They're paying for that officer to do that instead of us paying for that officer. And in the past, up until this agreement, it was okay back in 2007, but slowly as time went on, as salaries increased, we were kind of supplementing that with our fees. And what this does is stops that from happening, so there'll be no county funds expended for this.
Provided that we set the rate correctly.
Correct, and as the agreement shows, every year we'll go back and revisit that and make sure that the officer that's in place will be paying for that officer instead of just paying for a position. That officer right now currently is a vet we have as a probation officer. We will, every June or July, say his salary and FTE this year is this.
I'm curious, so if that officer's injured in the course of his duty and we end up getting sued, I think it increases our liability for lawsuits if we're taking over Kingman's responsibility.
It hasn't, I don't know if there's somebody else that can answer that question. I don't believe so. But.
I think that when an officer gets injured, they go into the program. So I'm not really sure it increases our liability. If someone is behaving in a negligent fashion, I don't think it would be our officers. They tend to be very well trained and competent when it comes to performing their duties. What this does is allow the court system at that level to keep cases essentially out of the Superior Court and dealing them with that level. We've already talked over and over again about the volume coming this way. This is another tool that we've been using for years to try to control the flow, because we don't want that volume coming these ways. And it does serve a population, the veterans, which tend to be very good at rehabilitating. They tend to be much more on the ball when it comes to, not 100%, otherwise they wouldn't be in that problem, but in that situation, but they tend to be much better at recorrecting their behavior once they're pulled to account, and a probation officer is a very good tool in rehabilitating them.
So this is only for Veterans Court?
The Veterans Court portion is only for Veterans Court. I don't think the DV Court is limited in that way. So it's two programs that the city of Kingman runs.
So this person is only for the Veterans Court?
He's for both.
Probation officer?
Or I shouldn't judge gender. The probation officer is for both. But part of it is the Veterans Court, yes.
Okay. You know, what did Lake Havasu and Bullhead City do?
They currently run the program without a probation officer.
Pardon me?
They run the program without a probation officer.
Oh, they have no officer?
They have no officer.
Interesting.
So Kingman is the only one that has one right now.
I can address that. They have a lot of mentors in the mentor program with the Veterans Court in Lake Havasu. They kind of take control or take charge of their personnel.
Thank you. It's not solely for Veterans Court.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Davis.
Just to answer Supervisor Gould's question on liability, there's an indemnity section in the contract, so there was a question on liability. The city of Kingman would cover us for anything. You had mentioned liability, so
Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you.
Item number 33.
I make a motion that we enter into this MOU.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
I appear to have it. You have it. So ordered. Item number 38, ratify the proclamation of May 23, 2025, signed by the board chairman implementing outdoor fire permissible consumer fireworks prohibition. Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that this item be adopted with the following exception for the 4th of July in areas within Mojave County that are below the 4,500 foot elevation.
For that motion, do I have a second? I'll second that. Additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Okay, we have a number of public hearings. We'll go through these as expeditiously as we can. First public hearing is item number 41. We're going to open the public hearing on item number 41, discussion and possible action, approve the adoption of BOS Resolution number 2025-95, an amendment to BOS Resolution 2025-11, which approved a rezone of assessor's parcel number 402-1647 from an RE10A zone to a AR10A and an AR2A to amend the location of the new zoning designations in the scenic vicinity, Mojave County, Arizona. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item number 41? We have no one signed up. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 41. Discussion? Hearing none, this is my district. I'll make a motion that we approve item number 41.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 42. We're going to open the public hearing on item number 42, discussion and possible action regarding approve the adoption of BOS Resolution 2025-96, an amendment of the Mojave County General Plan for assessor's parcel number 402-64105 from a general commercial land use designation to a medium density residential land use designation, and a rezone of assessor's parcel number 402-32234 from an AR zone to a C2H zone, and 402-64104, 105, 107, 109 from an RE10A zone to an RE1A zone to allow for a residential subdivision and commercial lot in the Beaver Dam vicinity, Mojave County, Arizona. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. We have no one signed up to speak on item number 42. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item number 42? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 42. Any discussion? Scenic is in my district. I'll make a motion that we approve item number 42.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you. We're going to open the public hearing on item number 43. Discussion and possible action regarding approve the adoption of BOS Resolution 2025-97, a rezone of assessor's parcel 22431-001 and 075 from a C2 general commercial and CRE zone to an SDC special development commercial zone to allow for RV storage facility in the Mojave Valley vicinity, Mojave County, Arizona. Commission recommended approval by a 7-1 vote. We do have one person signed up to speak on item number 43 during call to the public, Bo Cooper. Afternoon. Please state your name and address for the record. We appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Chair Lingenfelter, members of the board. My name is Bo Cooper. I'm the Entitlement Director with United Engineering Group. Address is 3205 West Ray Road in Chandler. Here representing the applicant and property owner. We're excited to bring this project forward and just letting you know we're here to answer any questions if the board shall has.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on item number 43? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 43. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
I've got a question for Director Holtry.
Mr. Holtry.
Director Holtry, I was looking at the background on this, and it appears that the applicant wants people to be able to camp in their RVs inside of this, what they're calling an RV storage facility.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Gould, that's correct. This would be similar to the storage facility that you see on your way to Havasu, the riverbound storage. They will provide a cover for your RV, but also have kind of a storage unit on site that you can not only store your vehicle there or your stuff, but also could use it as an RV park, so you'd be able to stay in your RV at that time on that site.
Do you know if under the zoning that exists on that now, would they be able to do that? Or RV parks included in that?
In the C2 zone, it would not. The CRE would allow for an RV park, but it's not necessarily zoned for a storage facility. So the zoning ordinance does have the SDC zone, which allows for almost a combination of different zones.
Okay.
That's what we're doing here.
Thank you, sir. No further questions. Mr.
Additional
Chairman.
discussion. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
For that motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you. We're going to open up the public hearing at item number 44, discussion and possible action. Approve the adoption of BOS Resolution 2025-98, a petition of exception to not require sidewalks or streetlights for Desert Lakes Estates, Tract 4152, a proposed subdivision of Mojave, Assessor's Parcel number 2262473 in the Fort Mojave vicinity, Mojave County, Arizona. Commission recommended approval by 6-2 vote with condition that sidewalk is installed on Everglades Boulevard. We do have one person signed up to speak, John Gall.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisors. John Gall, Arizona Land and Water, 2701 East Andy Divine, Kingman, Arizona, representing the property owner and the developer. The project was approved back with a preliminary plat in 2007. It's part of a built-out subdivision in Desert Lakes Estates that started in the 1990s. There's no sidewalks in the entire subdivision, no street lights, and this is the last 40-acre parcels for 115 homes in that subdivision. At the Planning and Zoning hearing, Commissioner or Chair Hassert voted no on the exception because the Everglades Boulevard, if you can refer to this here, has no sidewalks on the northern side. That's a block wall. And none of the houses that face the subdivision will enter into Everglades Avenue directly. So I feel it's a bit overbearing to build a sidewalk to nowhere, because the sidewalk will go to a half-built street to the east, and there's no sidewalks to the north, south, or west. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on item number 44? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on item number 44. I'll open up to discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
I move that this item be adopted with the removal of the recommendation for sidewalks on Everglades Boulevard.
For that motion, do I have a second?
Second.
For that motion and second, any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. We're going to open up the public hearing on item number 45, discussion and possible action regarding approve or deny the adoption of BOS Resolution 2025-99, an amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from a suburban residential land use designation to a general commercial land use designation, and a rezone from an AR zone to a C2 general commercial zone for Assessor's Parcel 319-13-269 to allow for a future small swap meet in the Dolan Springs vicinity, Mojave County, Arizona. Commission recommended denial by unanimous vote. We have no one signed up to speak for item number 45. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on item number 45 during the public hearing? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, open it up to discussion or a motion by the board. Supervisor Martin.
I've been contacted by a number of people in Dolan Springs. They are absolutely adamant against this guy doing this. he's got a bad record, bad track record in the past of doing this, and they're believing that he's just moving it down the street and it's gonna be the same stuff he had before. So, based upon the, information I've received from constituents, I would make a motion that we deny this application for rezone.
I believe that's appropriate. Okay, do we have a second? I'll second that. Additional discussion? Is that correct, Attorney Davis? I don't want to get back into a reconsideration. I want to make sure that it was.
That is correct. We have approve or deny, and so the recommendation, the motion was to deny, so
Okay.
we're good.
I thought so. So my second holds. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Thank you. Item number 46. We're going to open the public hearing on item number 46. Discussion and possible action. Approve the adoption of BOS Resolution 2025-91, a rezone of assessors parcel number 229220001S from an AR agricultural residential zone to a CMO, commercial manufacturing open lot storage zone, to allow for an open lot storage facility in the Fort Mojave vicinity, Mojave County, Arizona. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote with added condition of no manufacturing. We have no one signed up to speak. Item number 46. Do we have anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item number 46 during the public hearing? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and I'm going to open it up to the board.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Gould.
Under the current general plan, this is classified as light industrial. That whole area has been different than what it's zoned for now. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt.
Second.
For that motion and second, any additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Thank you. We're going to move to open the public hearing on item number 47. Discussion and possible action regarding approving repealing portions of Mojave County Ordinance 2007-08 regarding pet shops and dog groomers, continued from the May 5th, 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting. We have one person signed up to speak on number 47, Jennifer Esposito.
Thank you, Jennifer Esposito, Kingman. I spent 35 years in this business. I've worked in Arizona, Nevada, California, Texas, Oregon even, while I was traveling as a dog show judge. This is the only place I have ever seen such an absurd overreach, an unnecessary overreach of government. I mean, there is literally no zoonotic diseases, nothing transmissible that you can catch to human health from a pet grooming shop. At least not in Arizona. I mean, as a pet groomer, I did once catch ringworm, which is a fungus, but you only have those problems, skin diseases, you know, in humid areas, and we don't really have a problem with humidity here. But the thing is it's not just a waste of taxpayer money to send human health people to inspect pet grooming shops. It's also a waste of money for the small business. It's a complete and absurd overreach. It needs to go away. You know, this is just, I mean, it's another classic example of something the county shouldn't be involved in doing, because you can't, there is no benefit to human health by sending someone who doesn't work in the business or understand the business to make a determination annually on whether or not the color of paint on the wall might hide too much dirt, or whether there's enough hand washing stations when you have additional bathtubs with running water and soap and whatnot. And, you know, even with the inspections we have, it's nothing to stop the horrors and abuse at a place called Gotham Grooming. Google it if you don't know about that criminal case. But this is just something the government should do. I 100% support repealing this because it's really inapplicable to human health. We should have human health inspectors using their time and county resources to pursue things that actually do affect human health. So I would urge everybody to, you know, vote to repeal this. This is just, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. I cannot think of anything In 35 years of doing this, and I'm retired, I have no skin in this game whatsoever. No commitment to any shop, no interest in grooming again. I have terrible arthritis from doing this job. I have nerve damage and everything else. But as somebody who has actually done it, I can assure you that there is no benefit to the county in continuing this policy. I don't know whose idiot idea it was to pass this. And I could go into a list of gory things that are zoonotic diseases that are inapplicable, but I don't think you want to hear this, and neither does the public. But there's really no benefit in sending inspectors to every pet grooming shop in the county on an annual basis, because even if your shop was dirty, you'd clean it up knowing your inspection was coming, and then it'd be dirty again. So please do the right thing. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak during public hearing on item number 47? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Open up to the board.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, the state does not require that we regulate pet shops and pet groomers. The county started doing this in 2007. I think that the free market can regulate this better than the government can, because with social media, people know which place is dirty and which place is not dirty. Be an informed consumer rather than relying on a false sense of security by having the government regulate this. And let me tell you how far this goes. It actually says that you cannot heat up dog food and your lunch in the same microwave. Which, I have some common sense, and it just seems odd that we had to write that in there. Most of the things that are in there are going to be covered by the building department if they were building a facility anyway. There's no reason for us to do this, so I urge your support. And I move that it be adopted.
We do have a motion. Do I have a
Second.
Do we have anybody, Madam Clerk, from Public Health? I just have one question, like how this came into being in 2007. Order.
Chairman Lingenfelter. Sorry, what was
I'm sorry, I'll repeat the question. Supervisor Gould mentioned that this came into effect in 2007. It's not mandated by the state. Just one question, like why?
I can honestly say, I don't know. It was well before I moved here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Just thought I'd ask.
I'm not familiar.
I'm a data guy, so I always like to understand, like, why are we doing what we're doing? And if there's not a reason, then why are we doing it?
The problem are we?
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Okay, any other discussion? Supervisor Borelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We hear from constituents all the time that we need to start repealing bills and regulations, but here we have to have a bill to get rid of a regulation. So.
That's why we're here.
Irony.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I just appear to have it, do have its order. Thank you. That concludes the public hearings. We'll move to the regular agenda. We already did 48. We'll go to item number 49. Discussion and possible action, approve reclassification of position 220107 from a park superintendent to a park planner at approximate net annual 10,000 personal expense savings to better fulfill focus services in planning and permitting special events at the Mojave County Fairgrounds. We do have one person signed up to speak. We'll get through that. Mr. McClure, Scotty McClure, come up.
Scotty from Bullhead. A few years ago, I brought to your attention that we needed an audit over there, and we got one, and we got rid of it. Let me not swear right now. Anyway, you guys are in charge of it now. I'd like to understand what this guy was doing and what he's going to do. I guess he's going to try and get more big shows or something or whatever. But I heard two of you comment on this budget thing earlier on number 48 that you were going to have this on the agenda to start sticking your noses into the fairgrounds, which is run by Mr. Lutowski, and I think it's being run very, very good. I haven't heard anybody come up here and say, hey, this needs to be changed since you've taken it over. And two of you up here want to stick your nose in the county's business. I think Mr. Lutowski does a great job, and he's got good people over there. Leave well enough alone, but I would like to understand this, what this guy's used to do and what he's going to be do. We're going to have big shows over there now. Yeah, I better stop there.
Supervisors, would anybody like to hear from Director Latosky on this item? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
For that motion, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Those appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 50, information only. Staff received staff presentation and facilitated board discussion regarding A, the development services permitting process and associated review procedures. B, the regulation of kennels in residential zones, including approval and revocation processes as outlined in the Mojave County zoning ordinance. Afternoon, Director Holtree.
Good afternoon, Board. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity. This item is in relation to the two items that were brought to us during the call to the public at the previous board meeting, and the board wanted us to kind of follow up on these. And I'd like to maybe address the kennel one first. I think it's a little bit straightforward and easy to address. The speaker at the call to the public was upset about a kennel that is adjacent to her property that had a lot of issues, and that the county did not have the ability to revoke the permit. And subsequently, at this time, the applicant was, or the adjacent property owner that owns the kennel was already applying for an increase to their limit on their dogs. They previously had a kennel permit for 6 dogs, and at the time they were applying for a kennel permit for 10 dogs. In our ordinance, we do have requirements for approval. Staff requires that all the dogs are licensed and are up on their vaccinations. We also require that it does not become a nuisance to the surrounding property owners. With that, we received the reports from the animal control of the instances that were at the property, and with that, we issued a denial for the kennel permit on that property. The applicant, in that time, I was in contact with the speaker at the call of the public and informed her of what we were doing as staff, and she was happy and pleased with the outcome of the denial of the kennel permit on that property. We have heard from the applicant of the permit. They will be going through the appeal process, which we do have an appeal process for that kennel permit. But open it up to the board if you have any questions on that particular item.
Any questions on that item? Hearing none. Go ahead and proceed.
Okay, on the second one, we had a gentleman speaking at the call to the public in relation to our permitting process. I tried to reach out to this individual to get with him and see what permit he is talking about and how I could help him. I was not able to get in touch with him. The call just kept going to voicemail. With that, I kind of wanted to just present really quickly our process on how a permit is taken in. This one is for a residential home permit, and it's pretty similar for any permit that comes into the county. One of the items that the speaker brought up to the board was that the process has changed. I can reassure you that we have not changed the process. It has been this process for quite some time. We did make one minor change that I think helps speed up the process, and I'll point that out to you as I go through the presentation. It's just this one slide. As a residential home permit comes in, our staff looks at it to see if it's administratively complete. So does it have all the documents that we require? Is it listing the codes that we require? If not, we'll send it back to the applicant and say, hey, you need to resubmit with complete submittal, and then it will go back through that process. If it is a complete submittal, it has all the documents that we're requesting and the codes that we're requesting, then we do send it to the different reviewing agencies within development services. and you can see through our slideshow or through the chart that there are several different reviewing agencies within our department that will look at each application. The speaker at the Call of the Public mentioned that he was getting several comments from different reviewers, and what I believe he was referring to is that there are different reviewers in different divisions within Development Services that are reviewing the application specific to their division. We have our addressing, flood control, our building plan review, environmental quality, and then our planning review. The one change that I mentioned before was our planning review used to be with our permit technicians. They would also look at the zoning, they would look at the easements, they would look at the setbacks prior to even accepting the application. That was holding up the application quite significantly. So we did take that out of their purview, mostly also because our permitting staff aren't necessarily trained or receive the education needed for looking for a lot of those things. It's really under our planners that look for those things. So we did pull that one out, and it has sped up the process of accepting those applications. The permit techs no longer have to essentially do a review on it before it comes in. As those agents or the different divisions look at do their plan review, they see if corrections are needed. If corrections are needed, if corrections are not needed by any of those agencies or divisions, then the permit is approved. If corrections are needed, the applicant will have to resubmit. And this is where we see most of our delay is waiting for the applicant to resubmit their corrections to us. One of the things that we look at in that process is, does the corrections change the entirety of the project? So for example, if somebody's submitting a house plan and one of the corrections is the septic system is too close to the fence or to the property line, and then they have to ultimately switch the whole layout of their property, then put the house on one side and the septic system on a different side, we are going to have to send that back through the reviewing of other divisions, even if they did not have corrections, just because the whole entirety of that project changed. If it does not affect other divisions, that plan always goes back, the resubmittal of that plan always goes back to the same reviewer. They do not get, like the speakers mentioned, additional opportunities to make additional comments that they didn't see before. We only review the corrections that were made to that plan to make sure that they address those corrections, and if they addressed it, then it would go to that approval process. If they did not address it, then it would have to go back through that resubmittal. With that, I'm open to any questions that the board may have. Oh, sorry. Just a couple things that the speaker did bring up. One was that he's bringing in an approved plan, and we have to go through the process again with it. We do have a process within Development Services that allows you to have a standardized plan. A lot of our larger developers do this with us. They can have an approved set of plans, and it does go through an expedited review, and they're already approved. They don't need to necessarily be reviewed by our building division, whereas mostly the time consuming is in that building division portion. So if that speaker wants to have his set of house plans standardized, there's a small fee, and he can go through that process. The last thing that he brought up was that it's different requirements each time. For us, it's the same application, same form. The only thing that's changed most recently is we've gone online. So they are able to submit online, but it's the exact same information that we're requiring. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Supervisor Barton?
Yes. A question. When somebody comes in, what's the average time from beginning to the time when the permit's in is actually issued?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Supervisor Martin, average time for a single-family residential permit is 27 days. That's without corrections. If they don't require any corrections, it's 27 days. If there are corrections that are needed, our average time is 44 days.
Another question, what is the average number of permits that are submitted that actually go through on the first submission where there's no problems?
Based on these single-family residential permits that we're looking at, it was about 37% did not need additional corrections, and 63% needed corrections.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Holtry, when you redline prints when they need a correction, correct? That's still how I haven't built a house in 20 years, so I don't. We used to take a pencil or a red marker and they would write in that this needs to be, 4x10 or something like that.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Gould, we actually send them a letter stating all the corrections that are needed, and if needed, we give them our contact information, and they can contact our reviewer in person or over the phone and say, hey, what are you asking? But we try to explain it to them pretty clearly on that letter.
So do you let them just accept the corrections and issue them a building permit?
Accept the correction?
So if somebody had, say it was a 4x6, it was supposed to be 4x8. If you said this should be 4x8, or do you just say this is not substantial enough?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Gould, I do believe there are instances where it's not significant. All we need to do is maybe have permission from the applicant to maybe change it on their plan, saying, okay, you really meant 4x6, and we do that for them.
Okay. When the plan comes in, you said that you changed the flow a little bit. They're still making sure that all the forms are there before they accept it, correct?
Correct. That's always been the process. Just to kind of go into that a little bit more was previously our permit technicians would almost be doing a review on each of these plans to make sure that they're in the right zone, there's no easements, the setbacks are correct, and that took a lot of time. And so what we did is we pulled that out, and so that they're able to accept those applications a lot quicker, and now it's being reviewed by our planners. That is the only change that we've made recently.
And that was probably instituted in the past because they were getting turned in and they had some obvious deficiency that could have been corrected.
Right.
So they probably did that to speed the whole thing up originally, I would assume.
Correct. And our staff is still directed, and to the speaker's point, we did have quite a bit of turnover. We had some new staff in that permitting division. All of our permit techs were new at one point. But we do instruct them and are training them to see if they do see things that are obvious, like, hey, this is not the right zone. They'll let them know as well. So they are trying to help them in that manner, but they're not doing a full-on review. They're just making sure, hey, you have all the documents and everything's to the correct code.
And sometimes you guys do become the scapegoat. I ran into a guy. He said, I've been waiting on my permit for 3 weeks, or septic permit or something. Well, we looked it up and his contractor had just turned it in the day before. So sometimes you guys are the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Director Holtry, the 37% of submissions are fine in the first attempt. Is that what you said?
Yes, for single-family residential permits.
And is that with the hard copy version? Because and maybe you could answer a few questions specifically towards the electronic plan submittal and review process, because I think other systems that I've seen with that type of a system, it doesn't allow you to get the green check mark at the end if you're not submitting a complete submittal. So maybe you could talk about that, the electronic plan submittal process, that you either have to submit a full submittal or you don't. So hopefully that would increase that percentage a little bit. And then also, I'm wondering with the electronic process, if all of those that are involved are able to do concurrent reviews at the same time, and if all the red line comments are in the exact same place, if a designer or contractor or an owner can go online and see the status of everything where it's at. I mean, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. To answer your first question, as far as the submittal, the electronic submittal does have those requirements that if you do not submit something that is required, it won't give you that green check. You won't be able to submit. And that's currently how we have it operating on Excella. One of the issues is the computer program can't tell if it's actually what we need. So really, it's, do you have a document in there? Our permitting staff is doing that as well. So that's what they're looking at on the hard copies. Anybody that comes in, they're looking at the documents, making sure that what they are submitting is the correct thing that we are looking for. With the new system that we're going to be going to the SmartGov, and our staff is very excited working with SmartGov. It seems like it's going to be an amazing program because it's built specifically for permitting. And they do have the same submittal process where we can pick and choose exactly what they need to submit and make sure that it's being submitted correctly. It does have the concurrent review. Right now, with the Excella program, we were working towards getting the concurrent review through the Bluebeam service that we have, but it was going to be another process. This one has it almost built in, so that the new software has it built in so that when we start to go live, we'll be able to integrate it with Bluebeam, and all the reviewers, all these different review teams will be able to review the document at the exact same time. It would actually generate the comments that are needed for you and send it automatically to the applicants. The applicants would be able to go online and check the status of their permit. They can do that right now with our current Excella program, but it's not as efficient as the new software that we're proposing. So,
And, just an overview, maybe you can tell us the migration status of that. I think I'm overwhelmed by that. It's going to save this county in the millions.
Yeah, so I was planning on bringing an item to the next board meeting on June 16th, and I'll give a presentation on it as well.
Okay, great.
But we're proposing to go live with the SmartGov option on July 1st. It's going to be a scaled back one because we're trying to meet the deadline of ending Excella at that time. So it is going to be essentially what we currently offer for permitting with Excella at that July 1st. And I'll go into more detail on the June 16th meeting. But that we are scheduled to hit that July 1st opening with that software, and it should be really good.
Great, thank you for that update. We do have one person signed up to speak. Scotty McClure, you want to come up to the podium? You don't want to speak? Any other discussion? This is for information only, so we'll move on to call the public. Kenny Works, followed by Scotty McClure. You're on deck.
Any works, I wanted to talk about salesmanship. Putting a memo in someone's hands and suggesting they take it or leave it is not salesmanship. But I'm kind of referring to our Tammy Ursenbach's approach to salesmanship over the $30,000 fee for producing a salesman type video to pass around and hopefully improve our economic situation here in Mojave County. But I think that it should be constructive criticism, and there's room for improvement in that area. I wanted to comment on the way from the Dead Sea Scrolls, the way the Babylonians advertised their wares. the fear and dread of whom are on all the nations, all their thoughts are premeditated to do evil, and with cunning and treachery they behave toward all the people. They're referring to the Babylonians. Babylon Village, New York, bans gun stores. There's something similar about those two advertising concepts. I hope that we can come up with some sort of method for a little more civility when it comes to our sales pitches and improve our economy here in Mojave County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Scotty McClure.
Contact info on it. Left a message.
Scotty from Bullhead. Sonny, if you just move your office over to the brewery there, they'd leave. All right, you know where I was going. $600,000. Jeez, oh, Pete. Okay, a month ago I had an incident at my residence at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm in bed resting to go to the city council meeting. And all of a sudden this guy starts talking to me in my bedroom. I'm finding out there are no elder abuse laws in this county. There are no disabled abuse laws in this county. I intend on going to the state legislature and making some. We're going to call it Scotty's Bill. Yeah, this guy's been living in my front room there for a couple days. I'm that deaf. I just got approved for $774 by the VA for the rest of my life for my hearing. Pretty good for somebody my age to all of a sudden get a kick in the butt. A good one. That's like winning a mini lottery, and plus I got back pay too. Pretty good one. Where I see an elder abuse is I cannot go to the court. I've been to 3 hearings now on this guy. He's over at the Humboldt, or the Hilton over here. And I can't get an enhancement for elder abuse laws because there are none. There are no disabled. I can't bring charges against him other than larceny, or, well, in this state you call it burglary. And it's a felony. But I can't get a judge to enhance the law. It's not on the books. There is no elder abuse in this county. Bulls. You know what. The judges should have a discretion on an enhancement law here in this county to give this guy an extra couple of years. Like in California, we have a gun enhancement law, which ended up, we had to build more prisons for all the people that got caught with a gun. That is not what I'm asking for. I think a judge should have a discretion to give this guy an extra, they offered him 3.5 to 7 years. And if he doesn't, he's going for 16. You can go to Scotty.com Scotty at Facebook.com Scotty for District 2 at gmail.com. It's on my Facebook. I got to be careful what I say probably because he's got a fair trial coming up, maybe. So I've got to be careful on what I do. But where I'm seeing, this woman was tied up on La Puerta Road. She can't bring it. She's older than I am. She can't bring elder abuse charges against him.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Esposito.
Thank you, Jennifer Esposito, Kingman. Hey, while we're on a roll of repealing unnecessary rules and regulations, I got another one for you. Mojave County charges an annual fee if you live in your RV on your own property. And legally, there's a case to be made, and I'd be happy to argue this with any attorney because I argued this in La Paz County and I won. Only the state has jurisdiction over vehicles. The county has no authority over vehicles. So if you were sleeping on your property in your van or your, I don't know, Datsun or your Toyota or whatever, right? You don't need a permit for that. But the county thinks that it should be their business to go around to people's private property and say, oh, you need a permit to sleep in your RV. And then charge you rent annually, basically, is essentially what they would be doing. Because if you didn't have the permit, then, you know, I imagine they could probably fine you, lien your property, take your property, whatever. This ordinance was used, politically motivated, against my opponent, Logan Marsh, who apparently his father was living in an RV, but they were using, I don't know, the house, restroom, whatever. But, you know, it was used maliciously by an anonymous person. And thank you, board and previous board, for repealing the anonymous complaint thing. But the problem is that lots of people in Mojave County live in RVs. Not all of them are being enforced under this permit. There's no equal treatment, equal protection kind of thing, right? So because the county lacks the staff to go property to property from cane beds to donkey acres, they're only enforcing this against some people and not other people, and most of those people probably don't even know that it's probably not even legally enforceable. I think the permit was raised a few years ago to something like $250. I could be wrong. But if you have a single wide mobile or something on your property, you get an occupancy permit and you never see the county again. You shouldn't have to see the county every year because you choose to live in a vehicle on property that you own. So maybe you could look into that one and see about getting rid of that, in the same way that you looked into the absurdity of charging people to install their own water heaters. You know, there's a lot of this stuff. Most of it is coming from the UN Agenda 2030 International Property Maintenance Code, which, if you've never read it, and I have, is basically HOA rules for the unincorporated areas. Those things might be applicable in the city, but in the middle of nowhere, they're really not. And I guarantee you, no one is bagging their chicken poop properly either. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, board. We are adjourned.